Live. What's up, everyone? Welcome. Well, I shouldn't say back anymore. I should say welcome to the very first edition of the Glory Dayz podcast. This is going to be a new podcast to the channel here as I'm joined with my co host, Theo Monsta Mack himself. And today we have not one, but two very special guests, as I'm going to call him Corvis Fear for today.
Oh
And
boy.
Range. How's it going, brothers?
Good.
Yeah,
Happy to be
doing
here.
all right, man.
Nice to talk to you. Nice to see Steve and Eric again.
Nice.
Familiar faces. Familiar faces. I'm sure we're gonna dig into some fun stories.
Like just
It's
before we
nostalgic already.
start it, I'm probably gonna depress the room, but you realize we've known each other for 20 years now.
Yep.
Like,
I'm
isn't
depressed
that
now.
disgusting? Like, and the sad part is, you guys are the young guys. I'm the old guy. You know what I mean? It's like, man, I remember they were 16. To me, Deranged should be like 18, and Corvis should be 19. You know what I'm saying?
You keep thinking you met me at 18. You met me at like 16.
I know. No, trust me. I remember you and Megan were like the same age. You weren't. What were you? A couple of months apart?
I'm not sure. I just know that when I got to JP, I was 17.
Yeah, and I met you before that. So
Yeah.
Well then, so from what it's sounding like, you guys know each other for as long as I've been born. I'm
Wow.
23 hosting this right now.
Sheesh.
Man, you're gonna make us feel even older.
yeah.
But
Me and Deranged
when did
me
you
and
break
Deranged
it?
actually have the same exact birthday, July 3rd, boys.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah.
We're the exact same age on the exact same day.
July
You guys
3rd.
wanted your
Wow.
independence a day earlier.
So what time were you born? Who's older? What time were you born?
I think I was born in like 4:30 p.m.
Oh, okay. I was born at 5:02 in the morning.
Oh yeah, you got me. You got me by a few hours.
I'm sorry, Deranged is the old man.
That's right. That's right, brother.
Grizzled butt.
Oh, there we go. So let's get into this again. I want to do a little intro here, explain what we're doing here, because again, if you could see from the logo, it's inspired a lot from these days right here. JAP. There's a reason why the logo you're seeing right here is a little bit of a parody of it. I tried to pay as respects as I can to, again, a great place that I grew up on. I grew up watching these three guys you see here and loving the promotion, loving what they did. And I wanted to pay respects by getting a platform here to tell some stories, tell some good old days, tell the glory days of JAP and so much more that happened around that era as well. A golden era in professional wrestling. But before we get into the combos, before we get into the stories, we have to honor and pay respects to a man that without him, there's none of this. There's none of these guys right here. We got to talk about Fat Frank himself.
Yeah.
We have to pay respects to him because, again, without him, there is no JAP. There's none of this. There's a lot of your favorites that are working on television right now all across the indies. Without him giving a lot of these people their chances, there's none of that. So before we get into everything, if you guys could give some words about Fat Frank, what he meant to you.
Who's gonna go first?
You guys go first. One of you guys. I'll go.
All right. I'll go first. I'll say definitely you're 100% on that, or like the kids say now, facts. Facts. Fat Frank is the reason why a lot of your favorites are where they are. I'm not gonna say we got to give him a lot of the credit because he gave a lot of people an opportunity when no one else did. I'm definitely one of those people. Before Jersey All Pro, I didn't even know Bayonne existed. I was somewhere in Brooklyn training at the Doghouse with, Homicide, Loki, Julius Smokes, Grim Reaper, Azrael, Low Life Louie, like the list goes on and on and on. And that's all I knew. All I knew was the Doghouse. And Homicide took me out to Bayonne at some point in 2001 to the JAP school in Bayonne. And that's where I met Frank for the first time. And I guess the whole point of me and Ghost Shadow being taken there was to kind of do a little quick showcase for Frank and see if there was a chance that he could see the value in us to be on his show. So me and Ghost Shadow got in the ring. We did our thing in front of him. And I don't forget Fat Frank's reaction to us because he did like his signature, you know, that sound he would make. Oh, oh God, like, you know, and he was like going crazy over us, and like I remember him saying like, I mean, you know, not to stir shit up or anything, I'm just saying what he said, you know. It was like, man, who the fuck red, who, like, who the fuck needs red? You got the range, like, I got the range, fuck that, you know. And that kind of gassed me up a bit because I never thought I'd hear anyone say that. But from there, you know, he gave us our first opportunity on the independent scene to wrestle against each other at the ECW arena, which only added to it. You know, that was like a big deal. It was surreal to even have my independent wrestling debut at the ECW arena of all places. And me and Ghost Shadow tore it up that night. And from there, I was getting booked everywhere else from there. And I gotta say, like that's what set the tone for my whole career. If it wasn't for Fat Frank giving me that chance, me and Ghost Shadow that chance, I don't know who I would even be in life, honestly. Like I don't know what would have came about my life because that's what led to every other opportunity I got in the independent wrestling scene from there. I really, really don't know where I would have ended up if it wasn't for that one opportunity, that one match, you know. And I don't want to forget mentioning even after that, like he gave me a lot of shine in JAP, you know, that I didn't get anywhere else. I'm watching a lot of these old JAP matches now on independent wrestling TV for the first time. I didn't get to see most of my JAP catalog, so I'm seeing it now for the first time, and like I'm tripping, like thinking to myself, wow, like I had the mic so much in Jersey O Pro. Frank gave me so much mic time. I don't even understand. At some points, I'm like, was Frank fucking crazy? Like giving me the mic? I was a little
Frank
kid.
loved you, bro. I could tell you
Yeah.
firsthand. We had conversations. Remember we did that one show in the soccer place where we wrestled each other in like the second match or opening match.
Yeah, and I've been watching those, and I'm like blown away. We did some
He kept asking for you for a long time, and I was like, to be honest, I don't know, because that was when you were like hanging out with Teddy Hart and stuff, and those guys.
Oh.
So he was always looking for you because you were his reliable light heavyweight guy that he loved. He loved watching.
Yeah.
I know he loved Corvis too because Corvis was on. How many different iterations did he try to get Corvis on JAP? You know what I mean? Yeah. Every time he brought any one of us on, it was for reasons because he loved all of us. He enjoyed working with all of us. So, you know, like
yeah, I didn't get that kind of mic time or that kind of spotlight anywhere else, really. Like not, you know. So I'm really grateful to him for that. I wish that I would have, you know, been a little more clear minded back then. Like I was a child, so I wasn't the type to approach people and engage in conversation much. So I didn't know that I meant that much to Frank or, you know, the company or anything. But I'm grateful for that, and I always tell people that those stories about Frank. And I mean, also, like, not long after the debut, I was already Jersey All Pro Light Heavyweight Champion. And that was when I guess Xavier could, you know, rest in peace to him as well. Xavier couldn't make it to the show, so the title became vacant, and he made that match between me and Ghost Shadow for the title. And I assumed right away it was gonna be Ghost Shadow's, you know, like, you know, I really thought it was gonna be Ghost Shadow's, and he gave it to me. So I'm really grateful for all of that, because those are stories, and those are things that I can brag about to this day. I don't have much to brag about, but at least I have that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Eric, you lived in Bayonne, right? Is that
the thing with me is Fat Frank and JP kind of like saved me in a pretty rough position because my parents had just split and we moved back to Bayonne to live with my grandma. And the girl I was dating, Corinne at the time, you guys remember Corinne?
Yeah.
And she went to high school with Adam with Insane Dragon. And that's how I found out about JAP. Like, I didn't even know anything about independent wrestling at all. And I'm like dealing with the fact that my parents just split up. And I find out there's a wrestling school a few blocks from my house. I literally walked there every single day from the day they had the first tryout. And I remember sitting and talking to Frank and letting him know my situation. And like, I was 16 at the time as well. And he was the most fair with paying for training than any other human being that I have met, even since then. Like, you can't just show up at a wrestling school nowadays and be like, hey, things are rough right now. Like, I'll pay you when I can. Can I please train? And just be like, yeah, no problem. Or you have to do more ring crew than other people to kind of make up for the fact that you're not paying. You know, he would find different ways to allow me to still do this. And for like, that's probably like, of course, he gave me my first opportunity, like in front of a crowd and like the biggest matches of my career he booked me in. But it was back then when he allowed me to still train there when I was in such a rough spot and I couldn't necessarily afford training every single time. Never once turned me away and made it fun. Like, wrestling could be very, like, give you a lot of anxiety and be really tough, especially back then. Like, it was like just the end of like what territory wrestling was, where and the guys coming in were getting roughed up a bit. And Frank, even though all that stuff was going on, everybody was still laughing, everybody was still having a good time. And I feel that Frank was always the epicenter of those inside jokes and those laughs that you would hear during training. And that'll be like the fondest of the memories that I have for Frank, because everything else is just hilarity and ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I felt like I didn't, you know, I guess some people saw me act up a little bit, but that's because I didn't feel like I was in this uptight, like professional situation. You know, it felt kind of more like a family there. I didn't have a family to go home to, really. Like, you know, I had a small family, but, you know, when I went home, they didn't pay attention to me, you know, put it like that. And so when I went to JP, that was like a little clubhouse for me to go to. That was like an extended family for me to see. And Fat Frank was like a uncle that I never had, you know, that funny uncle I never had, you know. So I definitely can second that.
With JP, it really was a family, because with Frank, he had been around a few years before all of us. Him and Homicide and Jay Lover, they, you know, and Lathon, they went around, you know, the New York, New Jersey Indies. And back then, you know, it was like they treated themselves like they were elitists. And there was a glass ceiling. If you worked at JP because we were associated with Frank, they didn't want us. So JP became like really the only place a lot of us could work for a while, until like me, Moth, Key, Homicide, Deranged, you know, the SAT, all the other guys that were working for Frank on the regular started venturing out. Until that point, though, you couldn't work anywhere in Jersey. Nobody wanted to touch us because we were JP guys. And there was even a point where there would be guys that, you know, would normally work other places because they worked JP. It was like, oh, you worked at JP, you can't work for us ever again. You guys are garbage. And it was like, nah, bro. It's like, this is all a brotherhood, you know? So a lot of us felt like we were all backed in a corner together. And it was because of Frank that we were able to, like, come together. And, you know, and there was other people too, because, you know, you had Ray, who was the booker, Ray Sager. You had Jeff, who was the money guy, and Jeff was there till the last day. You know, you had Pierre, Johnny D, who was another guy that, if you were one of his guys, he made sure you were taken care of. You know what I mean? That's why his squad was always taken care of, because of Johnny D. You know, then you had guys like Magic, who ran the school. Magic, everyone. I said it the other day when we were in the ring. Everybody who's somebody from the New York area has some sort of interaction with Magic, you know, at one point in their career. So there's a reason why we all see him as a legend or an icon or whatever it is you want to call him. Is because
Pro Wrestling Magic is named after Magic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. You know, he had a huge part, you know. And then if you really want to get down, add Modtrom, because Modtrom was the visual perspective of JAP. You know, whatever you saw of JAP, it was through their lenses and how they made us look. So there was a whole bunch of people in that group. Frank just was the ringleader. It was his baby, JAP, and he all gave us a place to hone our craft. And the only other person besides Frank would be Bobby Lombardi, and that's for the New York guys. You know, New Jersey guys had Frank, but the New York guys mostly had Bobby Lombardi. You know, and the two of them, they both looked at themselves as the underdog that nobody wanted to be a part of. You know, and it's crazy that they went almost exactly within a year of each other. You know, first it was Frank, then Bobby. It was, I think, within like a week, you know, to a year, for them both passing, and it was like, man, that's crazy because both of them had such a huge impact. I don't know if they ever knew. I mean, like I would talk to Frank. No, I don't think so either. And I would talk to Frank and be like, Frank, you realize like you set Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling. A lot of their guys were all JAP Ring of Honor guys. You know, other companies, even AEW has JAP influence. You know, and that it's already been what, 5 years since the company's closed, 4 years, whatever it's been.
I don't think people realize that I tell people all the time that early Ring of Honor, like the original from the day one, I really believe, I mean, it's almost fact that it was inspired by the Jersey All Pro.
75% of that roster was JAP guys.
The New York scene. It was pretty much the New York scene and Jersey All Pro put together, you know. And then they brought in got a couple from the Midwest, West Coast, and the South. You know, they brought in the AJ and Samoa Joe and Paul London and everybody.
And then even on a local scene, you had companies like JCW, USA Pro, and ICW, UCW, whatever you want to call it. What we were doing at JAP, we started branching out. And this is, when I say we, I mean all of us, the JAP guys. We started hitting Queens, the Elks Lodge. We started hitting Pennsylvania with the Samoans, and North Jersey with Ricky O, and South Jersey with CZW. I mean, Deranged had an awesome run at CZW. Corvis, you had a run with CZW, right?
Like, yeah, I was there for like 2 years.
Yeah, like we all branched out from JAP, and it was all because of Frank, you know. And I know that when he passed away, a lot of WWE guys that worked for Frank shouted him out, but I really feel like more guys should have, because he really did give a huge opportunity for this area to flourish. And like, you know, it's good that we still talk about him. I do miss Frank. I know that. He would call me every morning at 6 a.m. Oh, Wawa's bringing back the Gobbler. And I'd be like, Frank, I didn't eat that shit. But you know, I miss those calls. I miss hearing his voice, and I miss the excitement he would bring. Like, it was always exciting on Friday nights when you go to Bayonne and work for Frank, because you never knew what was going to happen. You just knew some craziness was going to happen, but you didn't know what, you know?
Yeah.
I think it was a little different for me and Johnny, because like we grew up in it. Like we were, like he said, like we were kids growing up when, like, through Jersey All Pro, when the boom happened, when that indie boom was occurring. Like, we were kids. Johnny was further along than I was. Like, I was still a student. I didn't even get down to the grind until like maybe 2002, 2003 did I really get to start like doing some stuff. But to be part of that at such a young age, man, I feel like, looking back on it, I took a little bit of it for granted, because it's your first taste of it, you know? So you just think like this is what pro wrestling is, because you don't really know anything else. And the first place that I ever ventured to was the Doghouse, when we were doing a bit of a talent exchange, and they sent me and Tony Lazaro over as a tag team. And I remember getting to work with like their Dirty Rotten Scoundrels when they were in their infancy and like stuff like that. And at the time it was hard to understand what was actually going on. But looking back on it, it was amazing. It was such a crazy time to like come up in this business. And like I'm not even like you, not even just for Frank, but like you said, everybody that was a part of it. Like Modstrom was the first like the first guys that I really saw doing like music videos, like doing online shows. Like that's all wrestling is now, is streaming online. Jersey All Pro is the first company to do that shit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of those things that I don't think that people understand, that the company of Jersey All Pro was the forefather of so many different aspects of wrestling, regardless of just talent.
Yeah.
Especially,
No,
how many people, when you say JAP, say worldwide after it, to this day, and worldwide hasn't been on in, 4 or 5 years, give or take.
Yeah.
It left a deep impact. And, we all have to thank Frank and, just be glad that we were able to be in that moment. Because I know for a lot of us, like Deranged was saying, not for wrestling, who knows where the hell we would have been. Like, none of us were angels. We could have all ended up totally the other way. But
I was raised in I was living in Harlem in the projects. You know what I mean? Like, everybody I grew up with was a drug dealer and in a blood or a crip, and nobody around me in wrestling knew that, because I wasn't the type to glorify that. I didn't care for that. I went to wrestling to get away from that, and I shit you not, like going to Bayonne was like my first time even seeing the suburbs in person. Like I never saw anything other than like buildings and project buildings before, till I went to Bayonne. It was like a whole other world for me. And the personalities that I met and came to know were different. I mean, because in the doghouse, I was still dealing with a lot of the street element. We were all from the same background. But Jersey All Pro showed me something different. So it also helped me kind of change and evolve more as a human being. Because if I hadn't been able to get on that train and that bus to go to Bayonne, I would have been hanging out in Taft Projects, on 112th Street. I probably wouldn't even be here right now.
And also, one other thing before we change subjects, I just want to send a quick shout out, because the three of us, we're all connected outside of wrestling, because growing up, in the business in JP, we all did the same thing. And it was a very common occurrence after shows to go to our friend Gooch's house, Anthony. And we would all bond with him. He trained too, but he's my ex brother-in-law. I'm still cool with him. He's one of my favorite people, because he didn't judge anybody. And that's how, all of us kind of were. We didn't judge anybody. We just wanted to hang out. And especially with Corvis and Deranged being so young. And I was only 20. It wasn't like I was an ancient old man. But, we would all go to Gooch's house after. We'd watch whatever matches. And then we'd do kid stuff. We'd hang out, if people wanted to drink, people wanted to smoke, whatever it was. But we all had that bonding. So it was kind of like we were going to college at the same time. So, it was like, that's how we got our education. So, I just want to send a shout out to Gooch for, having that spot for us to be there. And, there's so many times we'd wake up the next morning and like, bro, you dead? I think so.
Bro, it's funny you mentioned that you made that college analogy, because it's true. I skipped college, right? I actually dropped out of high school for wrestling. I skipped college. I didn't get that experience, the whole dorm life, partying and all that. And I got a taste of that being with the JP crew. Yeah. And like my first experience with alcohol poisoning and blacking out was actually at Gooch's house.
I remember I was there for that. I remember. Trust me.
They found me on the bathroom floor and left me there. And 3 days later, the party was over. And I think 2 days later, I was still on Gooch's couch recovering. Like, I'll never.
Dude, you could do a whole podcast just on the stuff that took place at Gooch's house.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he'll appreciate this. But
most of the stories I don't think should be shared.
Oh yeah,
but they could.
I am going to share one only because it's so like this is how the madness of Gooch's house. So one of our friends, let's just call him Big Little Haas brother. You guys get that? What I'm saying? Yeah. Big Little Haas brother. he was, losing his virginity in Gooch's bathroom. So I don't know if
I
either
didn't
one
know
of you
that.
there. I think Eric might have been there, or actually both of you might have been there, but I don't remember who.
Probably was. I just didn't realize that was the case.
It's probably, yeah. So he's in the bathroom, in Gooch's bathroom, and the girl, she was a cute girl, I think he was about 16 or 17. Might have been, it was around that age. Might have even been 18, but I don't remember. But either which way, he's in there, and all of us, like creeps, are with our ear to the door. And then she goes, "It's too big. Take it out." And all of us, yeah!
I was there.
See?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's actually one of the cleaner stories that we could tell.
I remember the first time I ever walked into Gooch's house, and all I seen is a wall of every wrestling title that's ever
Yep.
existed.
Yeah, it's gotten bigger now. He's created his own belts now. So,
Jesus.
but
Is he still obsessed with Superman?
yeah, of course. He's got his figures up everywhere. Later on, hit me up on Instagram, and I'll send them to you so that way you can see. He's got his whole setup. It's actually pretty dope. But now he uses his mom used to collect Elvis memorabilia. So wherever all that Elvis was, once she passed, he took over that and put all his figures in there. So, fancy.
There you go. But this is insane, and that's just the start, guys. So, but before we continue here, definitely again we mentioned him with Monsta Productions. That's a lot where the footage that I'm going to be showing here today. That's where I got it from. So definitely shout out to that, because when you talk about wrestling now, people mention GoPro, mention a lot of that stuff. This was the original of all that. Like I've told Theo Mack before, worldwide, I feel like was definitely before its time. When we talk wrestling streaming now, you're talking IWTV, you're talking all these services. There was nothing like that before, and that was it was the best source. Like I told a friend of mine the other day, he was like, "How'd you watch a lot of this?" I was like, either through his productions or LimeWire was killing all my computers at one point trying to find all this.
Wow.
Like I was like, I messed up so many of my living room computers, but hey,
LimeWire,
it was worth it.
Yeah, you got to give Mort all the credit in the world, man, because he's been kicking his ass transferring all of that footage from VHS tape, which
That
is not
tedious process.
it's not easy, because you got to let the VHS tape play out from beginning
all
to
the way
end to digitize it, and he's
I've
been
tried
doing that. He's been doing that day in and day out to get that stuff up on IWTV. And like Johnny said, man, there's some of that stuff that I had never gotten a chance to see before. So like, it takes you on a trip, man. There's sometimes you see matches you don't even remember you had. And then you watch them and you're like, holy shit, why'd I stop doing that move? Or why'd I stop doing that spot? Like, that shit was awesome. Like, reliving all of that stuff.
All I post is stuff that I forgot that I did.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Like that match with me and you, Mac, that match that you mentioned, me and you, I think we had a couple, though. Honestly, every match that we had was a banger. I'm not gonna lie. I'm watching them back now. I'm like, what the hell? I didn't know I was all in like that in that match. You know?
Dude, the Hit Squad Youth Gone Wild feud was like insanity. And then you and Dragon in them was insanity. Those were the matches, like, before I was on shows, that I was watching as like a student coming up but still a fan, like, oh, like power bombs off of stages through tables and shit, like throwing darting people on the walls, man.
It was an easy story to tell. Me and Moff, we enjoyed, Moff more than me, enjoyed being bullies, but at the same time, you have to be able, it's pro wrestling, you have to be able to give what you take, and vice versa. So we knew that if we went out there with Deranged and Insane Dragon and Dixie, and they're 100 pounds lighter than us, and we're beating them, but we give people that hope, because remember, a lot of those people, they were friends for everybody, you know what I mean? But especially Deranged and Insane Dragon, because they were all Bayonne people. So when you see them and you see their family in the front row and they're just cheering for them, it's easy work, because all you got to do is just give them some shine, give them some hope, cut it down, bring it back up, and then every once in a while you give the surprise. And there was one time where Dixie and Dragon beat us, and It sounded like Madison Square Garden erupting, and it was Bayonne, 400 people at most. You know what I mean? But when you can do that, and you give and take, like I said, there shouldn't be any problem. And Deranged, I always love working with Deranged because Deranged was like, we could do things, but people believe like because there's some guys, lighter guys, when they hit a bigger guy, they're hitting them still. Like with Deranged, he was hitting, and everything you saw, it looked like he's connecting, he's making it look, you know what I mean? So for me and him to work, it was like we were able to tell a really good fight story. A lot of guys don't know how to do that. They tell pro wrestling stories. But I think with Deranged, it was always a fight, and it was like we just had that chemistry, I remember I feel bad because the one highlight I can remember for Corvis was like one of his first times in the ring, and it was the first time for me. And
no, it was maybe my third match. I was wrestling Lee.
Yeah,
on that show.
And Mop and I came out and we attacked.
Oh no, that is the first one. Yes. Oh, you're talking about when I was when I was a fan plant.
Yes, the plant. Yes.
Oh God, yes.
And,
I hadn't even wrestled a match yet.
And like some between Corvis and Moff, somebody was a little off with their timing. I wasn't sure who, and like I was supposed to give a clothesline, and it kind of came out like a hug rather than a clothesline. So of course, we gotta make a fucking stiff for a fuck up. This time he got up, and I clotheslined him, and I caught him right in the mouth, and he had that lip piercing, and it came right out, and it cut my arm
right out.
How hard I hit him, and like I remember going up, I was like, shit, I hope he's okay. And right as soon as he came to the back, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I just I'm making sure my shit is okay. And I'm like, fuck, I think it was more Moff who just like the way he grabbed him, he kind of just like threw his timing off. You know what I mean? And I was facing Moff. Yep.
And he pushed me backwards into you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not how a clothesline's supposed to go. So I tried to turn around. But at the time, I'm a 16-year-old kid greenhorn. It's not like I could tell Moff he fucked up. And then my dad and my stepdad were both there and tried to hop the guardrail to fight you guys.
Yes. And then with the Briscoes, their coach and their dad used to want to kill us. So, it wasn't an unnatural thing for us.
But I remember like you and Moff checked on me and I was okay. And then Frank and Ray came over because also, once again, I'm a 16-year-old kid who just got busted open and his dads are there. And I remember they asked me like, oh, are you all right? I'm like, did it look good? And Frank was like, the second one, yeah.
See, Deranged, it wasn't just you who got beat up; it was everybody.
Well, see, I thought you were going to bring up the fact because when like me and Johnny will go a few years without talking, then we'll talk. And the story that I always bring up is the fact that I was hooking up with this one girl, and she used to think Johnny was cute. So I came out during a match with Lee, and I did the whole Deranged like crucifixion.
So that's what that was about. Oh shit!
Yeah. So like somebody saw that and went and told Johnny and like Dragon and Dixie and shit. We had a battle royal like later in their show, and they just like beat the shit out of me in the middle of battle royal.
I'm sorry about that, Eric. I really am sorry about that.
No,
that was the Harlem in me. Like I hadn't shaken that off yet,
But that was the first time that I had ever experienced that type of what wrestling is, because people do get to a point where they need to get kind of roughed up a little bit so they learn the respect factor.
Yeah.
Johnny was on shows. Johnny was a champion at the time. That was my third match. I had no place making fun of him, especially when it was an in-joke with somebody else in the crowd. But when you're young, you don't see that. The second that happened, we went to the back. All three of them walked up to me, shook my hand, gave me a hug, and said, "Don't do stupid shit again," and we're good. and from that point forward, never had an issue. Never had another issue again for the rest of my life. Because that's what wrestling was. You get fucked up, you get taught your lesson, you move on. That's not today.
No.
It's wrestling's physical. Wrestling's physical. You can't change that about it, like, and I get it. Like people think that that's like bullying somebody or whatever, but I mean, when your parents spank you for doing something wrong, are they bullying you or are they disciplining you? You know what I mean? Like, but you know, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want Twitter coming at my
I
neck.
no, I honestly, I look back on it as a positive memory. I look back
Mhm.
on it as like I learned something brand new about wrestling that day that I had to learn if I was going to survive moving forward. Because what if I went to a show for the first time and I made fun of their roster member,
Right.
like it's
Hmm.
my first time in, then I could have got like really jacked up. You know,
That's why
you
that's
got
important.
like
Yeah.
you guys didn't break anything. You
Yeah.
guys didn't like break my nose, like nothing. Like
No.
I knew in the moment I was getting stiff because I fucked up, and that was it. That was the end of the game. And I honestly look back on that as a positive memory, a learning experience that if I had gone on longer with that mindset, could have been really detrimental to my career.
Yeah, like I also like wonder, you know, what I would be if or like what I would be as a wrestler if I didn't get my ass kicked by the hit squad or by homicide like that. Because I mean, they didn't assault me. You know, they didn't do what people would say is taking liberties on me. Like I remember moments where if I was fuzzy in the middle of the match on a spot, if I forgot something, you know, I would get clipped, you know, kind of like to wake me up, you know, get back in it, like wake up, you know. I don't see that as a negative. And also it made me tougher, you know. It just made me it made it easier for me to endure the physicality of wrestling because again, wrestling, no matter what, no matter how you paint it, is something physical. It's something athletic, and you have to be tough to do it. You know, you have to be an athlete to do it. You can't pretend, you know. And being in the ring with the Hit Squad and Homicide and all of them, like they toughened me up, you know. Like now, if I go out into the street and I get into a real fight, I can take a lot more than a punch, you know. I got thrown into the ceiling by Mack and Moff. I got thrown into walls, like you know.
But you know,
and that's
I've been watching Deranged go out there with the guys from like GCW when he gets showcased on those matches, and you could see the difference in Deranged in how his style is in the ring versus how the other guys, the younger guys, are. And his style is more, you know, a fight, physical fight, whereas their style is more choreographed dance. You know, and I'm not shitting on anybody because I can't do any of the shit someone like a Ninja Mack could do. You know what I'm saying? But when you watch, if they just learn how to put together certain things and make it look like a fight rather than, okay, it's my turn, okay, it's your turn, okay, it's my turn, you could see that like when the range is in there, you know, and it's like I guess it's veteran experience for lack of a better term, but you could see that like his shit, whatever he's doing, and Grim Reaper as well. When they're in there, they're changing it up, and it stands out far and above. And they're not doing anything crazy; they're doing stuff within their basic repertoire. But that's this big ass word. Somebody try to spell that shit. But you know, they're showing all the younger guys how to properly do this, and hopefully some of them are picking up. You know what I mean? I
Well,
always
you know,
Corvis too, though. No, okay,
okay.
Oh, I
Well,
was
I
just
was
gonna
gonna
say,
add on to what you were just saying because it's funny you say that because when I show people the scrambles from back in the day that we used to do, right? People are like, "Man, the pace of this is so much different than the scrambles that I see now."
hmm,
And I'm like, "Yeah, because first of all, they coined the term scramble in ROH after us, the matches that we were doing, those clusterfucks, those spot fests, like that wasn't common back then. We decided to do that because we had this obsession with lucha libre no tag rules, and we like created this hybrid of Mexican lucha libre no tag rules with American wrestling, and it became that. And so there was still like some semblance of psychology in it when we did it, you know. And I'm not knocking everyone that does scrambles now. I'm not saying that everyone is that does scrambles now is guilty of this, but I agree with what you're saying. I think that in an attempt to try and do what, I mean, it has been like 20 years. In an attempt to do what was being done 20 years ago, there's kind of like this disconnect between how we actually did it and what they think we were doing, you know? And it's like they're trying to imitate what that match, they're trying to imitate what we did in those matches, but they're not, I guess someone's not there coaching them along, letting them know like, hey, it's not just do one thing after another, do one thing after another. Like, we actually threw some psychology in what we did, and we would actually slow things down at certain points. It wasn't just nonstop this and that. But you know, there's like this new push towards like making wrestling like free to be anything anyone wants it to be, and I'm okay with that. But I mean, I personally am a fan of like telling a story and things making some kind of sense, and not going into something unless there's a good segue to that, you know.
I mean, it's kind of like a gift. It's like a gift culture thing now. It's like you want to go out there and you want to do the thing that somebody's gonna clip, that's gonna go viral on the internet, and that's the mindset going into matches nowadays. And like back in the day, like when we were, God, I hate saying back in the day. Holy shit!
It's the glory days, Corvis. That's why I didn't call it the old days podcast. It's the glory days. It's a golden era.
When we would go to other places, I feel that there was also you had this weight on your shoulders of being a Jersey All Pro guy or of being a Doghouse guy, and if I would be wrestling somebody for the first time, I would get like a nice solid shot, and then like we would fall into the match, and then afterwards it's like, oh, you're from Jersey All Pro, so I just figured like that's how you like to work. So like,
and it's funny how people
that became a thing.
Yeah, and it's funny how people like nowadays they try to knock that, but I don't ever see them criticizing Daniel Bryan for laying it on people. I saw him laying it on people on WWE TV. I've seen AJ Styles laying it on people on WWE TV. I've seen AJ Styles giving forearms that I'm like, holy crap! Like, can he get away with that there? Like, you know, but you know, it's not an uncommon thing. I just think people, they don't want that to be part of the culture anymore because they don't realize how much of a benefit it was to the culture before in terms of like keeping people on their toes and in check and keeping a certain respect towards it, towards wrestling, you know.
Well, it's the realism of it.
Eric, I've seen you at UWA Elite where you've taken the locker room and you've talked to the entire locker room, and then you've taken certain guys in the ring and you've coached them. So I know firsthand that like Eric, when he Corvis, I'm sorry, when he is done with his in-ring stuff, he's going to be backstage. He's going to be one of the top guys because he knows how to pass along that and connect with these kids. You know, a lot of these kids that work under Corvis, they're learning and they're getting better. And the same thing with Deranged. A lot of the cruiserweights or spot monkeys, whenever they get in the ring with Deranged, they come out looking better the next time they're out there. Now, if it keeps up, that's on them. But, you know, but I think, you know, also the main thing is in this generation, there's so many people who are just looking to be famous rather than wrestling fans. We were all wrestling fans. It's very rare that anybody from our class, our group of guys, weren't wrestling fans. Like, we could tell you all about 1980s WWF, and we could tell you about 1970s and 80s NWA because we all studied it. These kids, a lot of them only see, you know, a 3-minute clip on YouTube, and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be a wrestler, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to get millions. And they don't realize that just because you have, you know, an Instagram count of like 2,000 followers or a Twitter account of like 10,000 doesn't mean that you're going to be a good wrestler. It doesn't translate, and now that, there's a lot of snowflakes, and I'm saying that because I'm an old man and I can say that. If you got a problem, fight. But there's a lot of snowflakes who think like, well, it's all inclusive, and just because I'm this or just because I'm that, you have to include me. No, you have to be able to be good and work and learn to respect what you're doing. A lot of these kids.
I remember a time where, like, if you wanted to be on the basketball team or the baseball team, you had to try out for it. You had to be good enough to be on the team. Like, now it's like, no, I just can be on the team because,
And if you don't put me on, I'm going to tell everyone to cancel you. So, like,
you don't need to be a good wrestler to be on the team. Now that's the propaganda getting spread around. Like, you don't have to be a good wrestler to be on the team. That's not what wrestling is about. Now people are redefining what wrestling is about. But you know what? It's not their fault. I don't think it's their fault. It's there's like a missing link in between our generation and theirs. And I'm not saying our generation is the generation to learn from, but like,
I will, because that's what I did. And again, there's a lot of
we learned from the guys before us: Stan Hansen, Terry Funk, Bruno Sammartino, the guys that came along that laid the foundation that we all grew up watching. Those guys, like, we could watch stuff now from the 60s and 50s, and us as vets be like, "Wow, that was amazing!" Like, how many times we'll watch someone like a Billy Robinson for the first time, and he's like the originator of the cruiserweight American style. And he wasn't even American, he was British. But the stuff that he brought along from Great Britain and all the stuff he learned in Mexico and in Japan, he was teaching to the guys at AWA and Florida and all the other territories that he wrestled in. And when you watch it, you're like, oh man, he's doing like ranas and deep arm drags and rolls and, like, just amazing stuff. But ask any of these kids who Billy Robinson is, I don't know, you sell ice cream? You know what I mean?
I guess it goes back to what you were saying, like, before about the internet. Like, our little era was like the last era without the internet backing it up.
Yeah.
I think all that internet stuff kind of picked up after us, and like you said, it's what has a lot of people pretty much just learning second, third, fourth, fifth hand information and knowledge from other people that maybe they're misguiding people a little bit on how much they actually do know and how much of a role they did play in wrestling before them. Because a lot of the guys that this new generation should be learning from are already on TV, and they're behind the scenes producing for AEW and WWE and all that. A lot of those guys are not available to them anymore, like they were available to us. So, they're just learning.
How many times we sat at Gooch's house, the three of us, because I remember sitting there with Dixie, Dragon, all of us, and we're watching Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid, or we're watching Bret Hart and Stampede, or we're watching, any of the Japanese stuff from the 80s.
That's all we did.
We weren't just marking out; we were studying and learning. And I feel like
in the doghouse, that's all we did.
Exactly. Yeah. Doghouse, we would sit there till 6, 7, 8 in the morning and stagger out like roaches when the lights came on, because it was like we were there all night watching and studying. And then because we had the ring right there, we'd go and get in the ring at 3 in the morning. We didn't care.
And try all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I also think it's generational as well. Like, when we would watch those tapes, most of the time we would watch them in groups together. But now that everything's available digitally, a lot of people are doing tape study by themselves on their phone with nobody out to check and nobody to being like, wow, that would be a really cool thing for you to try out. Or somebody being like, I want to try that. No, I don't think that'll work for you. What if you tried this instead? I feel like conversational growth is such an underrated thing in pro wrestling. There are so many things and so many ideas that we have all come up with together in a group just because we're having conversation, just because somebody might see something in you that you don't see in yourself, or think that a spot or a move or a gimmick or a entrance song or gear that you might have not have thought of now you have this group to kind of bounce off of. I don't
Yeah.
think they have that now. And as far as like the spot monkey type thing, like I feel that that happens in every generation because of the way that wrestling evolves. Like you were saying with the Billy Robinson stuff, but you could find articles in PWI from back then of people that hated what he was doing because it went against what they thought
Mhm.
wrestling was. And then when like Johnny and Dragon and Special K and all of
They
them were
said the
doing that
same about
scramble shit,
us.
they said the same
Yeah.
thing. Hey Johnny, guess what you are today? You and Steve are that old guy that are like
Yeah.
these new kids don't
I
get
think
it.
about it all the
But
time.
it's
I think
but
about it all the time.
it's just about the evolution
Yeah.
of what pro
Mhm.
wrestling is like this is what it is now, and it's so hard when you know in your brain what wrestling should be, but
Mhm.
sometimes it just isn't anymore. But I think we're
Wrestling
getting to a
inevitably
point.
changes. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's hard
and I
for the previous generations to swallow because it's like it's not what you remember and fell in love with anymore. You know, it's something different, and you have to just
yeah.
adapt as it goes.
But there's so much of it out there that I can still find the wrestling that I want to see and be able to
Yeah,
enjoy that, because everybody, what wrestling is becoming for me is a hybridization of everything. Like
yeah,
here is every type of wrestling at your fingertips. You like deathmatch, you like lucha, you like technical, you like MMA. We got a pro wrestling for you. Now everything has evolved into niches because there's so many people who have their own idea of what wrestling should be. And the beauty of pro wrestling to me is that all of them are wrong and all of them are right at the same time.
Yep.
yeah.
Because rest,
I definitely can't get mad at anybody because I think I was definitely one of the handful of people back then doing things that were making the Jim Cornettes and everyone else irate because I think I had a match in 2001, and it was like one of Jay Lethal's first matches within one of his first 5 matches. It was like a 4-way between me, Rainchild, Jay Lethal, and Ghost Shadow, and
I remember that match.
I did a Hadouken from Street Fighter. Like I didn't even touch Rainchild. I did it from across the ring, and Rainchild sold the shit out of it. You know, and I used to do all these other silly things that now people do as niches. And so I definitely don't get too upset because if anything, it's our fault.
But you know
I
what?
Like,
At
think
this time, I'm looking at the chat, and there's a wrestler, PJ Savage, and I know Ray knows him because he's interviewed him recently, and like we've been going back and forth, and like they are what we were 20 years ago now, but it's only a small group. It's him and his boys, about like 4 or 5 of them, who do travel together like we were doing, and they talk to each other and they cut promos and they rub people the wrong way because they stick together. You know, when you have that strong click, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, fuck those guys." You know what I mean? But it is out there. It just isn't like with us. We swam with sharks. I don't know if you guys realize it, but everybody in this area was somebody to the point where, and Eddie Kingston had to go out to Indiana. Eddie Kingston, who's one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, had to go to Indiana to make his name because it was so heavily, populated with great wrestlers and great wrestling. Not everybody was great people, but great wrestling was in this area. And someone like a Kevin Matthews who grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up with the kid. I've known him since he's like fucking 6. You know what I mean? He went down to North Carolina. 6 foot. What is he? 6'4", 6'5". Motherfucker that stands out, especially with all of us being under 6 foot. And he had to go down there to get seen. And, within 6 months to a year, he got his first contract with WWE. You know what I mean? Because this area would, like, if you worked in this area, you had to be able to swim with the sharks. Because that's all it was. And it wasn't like we were being jerks to each other. It was everybody was competitive. And what are you going to do to be better than me? You know what I mean? It didn't matter if you were opening, if you were tag, if you were women. and even then back then the women weren't as you know talented as they are now. It's not that they sucked or anything like that, but the pool wasn't as deep for the women. So, but now you got all these women who train with guys, can work as guys work, you know, and now it's you got that part. But I feel like because we were all so hungry and just nasty savages, you know what I mean? Not to shout out PJ any more than what I'm
I
doing.
was gonna say you're putting him over, Theo.
Everybody in that whole environment back then, whether you're in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, or Connecticut, and even some of the Maryland, because like Ruckus and those guys were from Maryland. You know what I mean? But in that core group in the Northeast, we were just on another level back then because every week you had 4 to 5 shows, different shows going on in different areas, and it was just let's see who could be the best today. You know, I might not be the best tomorrow, but I'm going to be the best today. You know, and it was just it was healthy. You know, the problem was
there was a level of competition that I don't like. I think now everybody's more like, not that it's a bad thing, you know, but everybody's more like always positive and supporting each other, which is a great thing because I put up with a lot of BS because of the competitive nature of things back then. But also the competitive nature kind of did push me to want to like level up constantly and like always like we, you know, if you were watching the match before you and somebody did something mind-blowingly innovative, your response wasn't to copy that, jacket and do it at the next show. Your reaction was to be like, I gotta come up with something better than that. I gotta top that. You know, that was everybody's mindset back then, and I think that was healthy. You know,
even with Corvis, I did real quick. Corvis used to team up with a guy when your partner in H2O. What was his name again?
Rush.
Yes, Rush. Rush didn't
Oh
suck.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, Rush didn't suck.
But the problem was it was such a shark infested tank that at some point Corvis was getting here and Rush, his progression wasn't as quick. He had to get left behind. And it sucks because those would be guys that you travel the road with and you have to like, I'm sorry, bro. You know, we're going here. If you're not on the train, get off. I'll write you and I'll let you know how it was. You know, and like I can remember, like I would see because you know I was commentating, so I watched everybody's match. You know, and you could see like a lot of people that was happening. You know, a lot of people that had talent and that were good were getting left behind because we were such heavy into it that you got this great instead of this great. You know what I mean? And you know, it's just crazy that that's how insanely talented everybody was in this area at one point. You know, and it just you know, it's cool that we got to grow up. I feel bad for the kids today because they're doing great things. There's a lot of great athletes, but at the time, they're not getting the response that they should be getting because they don't know how to set the roller coaster up right. You know, they just know, oh, let's just go up. It's not like that. You got to go up and down, peaks and valleys, because that's what makes the crowd emotionally invested. And I think a lot of them don't understand that because, again, you know, the internet era. I mean, I used to say it all the time. The Hit Squad grew up, and we got famous without YouTube. I used to go to like Great Adventure, and my ex-wife, she would get mad at me because people be like, Hit Squad. And I'm like, hey. And she's like, you know them? I'm like, no, I don't. She's like, well, why the hell are they following you? I don't know. They're wrestling fans. What can I tell you? You know? And like, you know, I think now because there's so much instant access, instead of them being special wrestlers, they're just people. You know, like if you can, back then there was no platform to associate with wrestlers. Now you have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. You can talk to any wrestler and they'll respond. You know what I mean? And I think that takes away from the mystique as well. You know, we were talking about it before. The Hit Squad had a mystique because we didn't always make ourselves accessible. I mean,
well, everyone had a mystique because the only time fans saw us was outside of the building at shows and in the ring during the show, but they didn't know what we did on our day-to-day lives. They didn't know who hung out with who really. You know, they weren't in on all those things as much. But you know, like Corvis said, like things change, things evolve. And the internet has certainly accelerated things a lot. It's opened the door for a lot of people to step in and be a part of it, which is cool because I'm sure uh, even if somebody hasn't maybe worked as hard as they should at the craft, maybe they come from a background like I did, and they need this alternative. They need this place to go to like escape whatever it is they're dealing with in their own reality. So it's like sometimes it can like annoy me a little bit, you know, because I'm very big on details, and I love the craft itself of wrestling, and I'm all about the footwork and the ring positioning and the psychology and all that. Um, but you know, I can't hate the fact that you know now it's giving people more people an opportunity to feel important and to test themselves and maybe break out of their shell. Maybe they're super introverted and shy, and they get to like throw on some gear and go out in front of a big crowd and overcome those fears. You know, like that's cool too. I guess there's pros and cons to everything. I try not to be too salty about things because I
Man,
feel
fuck
like
your kids.
all them scrambles are no different. You know, them scrambles we were doing back then, all that shit. Like we were the spot monkeys back then. You know, so it's like for me to call anyone a spot monkey now would be like pot calling kettle black.
But
Yeah.
that's the thing is like it. What you're inspired by growing up dictates the style that you present in the ring. And once again, an aging statement. Like there's kids that watched you doing that shit 20 years ago, 19, 18 years ago, and that's what made them interested in becoming a pro wrestler. So when they trained and stuff, like they wanted to do the shooting stars, you know, they wanted to do the fucking at the 480 twist off the top. They wanted to do that fucking shit because that's the stuff that that intrigued them when they were little kids watching or when they were teenagers watching. You know, like it's wrestling is different for everyone. Like everybody's trying to get something different out of it. Everybody's trying to get a different type of satisfaction out of it. And we never know the struggles that other people are going through. You know, we don't know why people become pro wrestlers. We just know what we see. And like Steve said, the interactions online, it does kill the mystique a little bit when you can you can never just like tweet at Hulk Hogan when we were growing up and he'd be like, "Oh, hey brother, take your vitamins." Like that's not what wrestling is, but like it evolves with the world. Like that's what like wrestling changes as the world changes. And now
Have to get
like
a charger.
re-
Excuse me.
everybody nowadays is like a lot of people are making their careers as independent wrestlers because they have social media.
Yeah.
Like what would have happened like if we had that shit growing up? Would we have even been able to blow up further because more people would have been able to see the shit that we were doing? Who knows? We don't know. Like I have no idea. And like I was a late bloomer when it came to wrestling. Like I didn't really take off until the Jersey All Pro thing started to kind of fizzle out a little bit when they decided they didn't really want to do it anymore. Like when Jersey All Pro decided to stop, I was like, no, like that's my everything. Like that's my name value. Like what am I gonna do now? And it forced me to like, and that's when like Beyond Wrestling became a thing. That's when like CCW like for me became a thing. I went out to Chikara, and all of that was because of like the name that I was able to build in Jersey All Pro. But man, when that shit's ended, that was a huge blow to
Yeah.
independent wrestling. I feel.
And it's something I feel like it resonates today. That blow is still impacted. I know something I was gonna say when you guys were talking about like the competition of all of it. I feel like that's what wrestling's missing now. It's that family element that you guys were talking about. It's that genuine friendly competition that I feel like that's what doesn't make these guys now want to like, oh, let me try to do something better than that. It is a lot of now. It's the, oh, I saw this on a GIF. Let me try to copy it now. That's
But
what a lot of
also,
guys.
the thing is, with that is competition when Jersey All Pro was coming up was with one another.
Yeah,
When there's only 5 or 6 places to work within a 10-mile radius of where Jersey All Pro is, all the competition is in house. All the
yeah,
competition is between the wrestlers. Now there is 47 independent companies
That's
within
just Richfield Park alone.
50 with
Yeah.
within 15 miles of one another. 47 different independent companies from the epicenter of like where Bayonne was out.
yeah,
Like now it's overwhelming. Now it's like there's 3 shows running on this same day. Like which one's gonna get my money? Like I liked it better when the competition was between all of us as
yeah,
wrestlers and not between 47 people all trying to get 80 fans. You
Yeah, it
know,
seemed like it
it's
seemed like
tough.
in the New York, New Jersey area there was only like what 4 or 5 places to go.
Yeah, there's like Jersey All Pro, there was JCW, then there was all the NWA New Jersey affiliates that
Yeah.
were south, but they would kind of just pop up here and there, but they were all still under the same umbrella.
There was
But I
ICW, USA
yeah,
Pro.
in New York you had ICW, you
Yeah.
had USA Pro and shit like that, but it wasn't overwhelming, like if you wanted to, you could go see every single independent wrestling promotion that was running in like a 2-month period and never overlap, never have to choose one wrestling company over another wrestling company. You could support all of the wrestling or just go to the ones that you liked. And it was us who were fighting for the spots, and it was us who
yeah,
had the competition. And because we had that competition with one another as wrestlers, when we went out there, every match from one to last was a banger because everybody was trying to be like, and this is why you booked me, and this
yeah,
is why you should keep booking me. And that was the competition.
yeah,
Now, because there's 47 independent wrestling companies, that's 47 rosters of like 20 or 30 people per company.
But
As a fan, it has to be overwhelming.
the worst part is there. It's for a lot of those companies, they use the same 10 people on top, and they really don't change far from the formula. They stay with those same 10 guys. So you would go watch Company A, and it'll have the same main event as Company C and Company D, and it's like, oh well, why am I going to give it to this company when this company's running or that? And it's like there's too many options, and too many of the guys are wearing themselves out thin. You really have to make yourself exclusive. That's the other thing that Jay.
It's not the most entertaining for us, but now that I understand the wrestling business more, I guess I can see why people do it. They don't want to lose money.
Of course.
They just want to. They don't want to gamble. They just want to go with who's hot right now. That's it. This one, they're hot over there, then they're gonna be hot over here too. In my
And I get that, but at the same time, you're devaluing yourself. If you make yourself exclusive, listen, me and Mop were able to have a good 2.5, 3 year run with Beyond Wrestling. And that was the only place you saw me and Mop for a majority of that time. And we made a lot of good money there because we were able to just be exclusive in the New England area for Beyond. We weren't even doing stuff down here for like the first year or two.
That's what I've been doing with GCW. Like I've been creating mystique around myself as being like a special attraction that you got to go to a GCW show to see me.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see Deranged, and be in all that nostalgia, whatever. That's gonna happen at GCW. It's not gonna happen anywhere else.
And that's what a lot of these kids don't understand, though, is that because they are all over the place. Yeah, you're making. Let's say you're working 4 shows and you're getting, $150 per show. Yeah, that's $600. Or you could work 2 places and charge 300 and less wear and tear on your body, and it makes people want to go see you because you're only working exclusively at A and B rather than A, B, C, D, E, F. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I think that's a harder thing to do nowadays, though, when so like because so many, especially like you got like your Janellas, like your Effies, your Alley Catches, who are living life just wrestling. Like they don't have real jobs, and I feel like that's like a big goal for a lot of independent wrestlers now isn't to just be an attraction, it's to be able to live your life sustainably at
Yeah.
an independent level while also just wrestling.
And that's
And
why I
that would
don't
have
blame
that's
them for doing
unheard
that.
of back in our
Yeah.
back when like 20 years
We
ago. That's unheard of to be an independent wrestler who could
Yeah,
live
you
off of
you
just
couldn't make
wrestling.
passive income off wrestling back then. Like
No.
it goes back to the previous point. Like things have changed. Things have evolved, and now we have technology and the internet, and it's allowing people to do this and actually make a living. And I really can't knock that. Like if that's what they got to do to get to that place in their life, then I encourage it. Good for them, because I would have killed to be able to only do wrestling back then. In fact, if I had that option back then, I'd probably have had a different career in terms of wrestling. Like I would be in a different place. Maybe
Probably
I
in a
would have had
wheelchair.
even more success. What happened?
So probably in a wheelchair.
That
If you
too.
got to wrestle back then full time and went into all of those matches the way that you went into them,
Yeah.
you would have been rolling around in your UFOs in a wheelchair.
You are probably right about that. I did break my neck. I did, and that's something that a lot of people don't even know because I asked people to not tell anybody. So I kind of disappeared for 7 years with no one knowing why. People thought I just quit. People just thought I threw in the towel or whatever. But I actually fractured 3 vertebrae in my neck. Like a month after ROH finally let me go, I did an indie show and I broke my neck, and that's why people never saw me again. So I'm lucky to not be in a wheelchair, honestly. You know. Oh, and real quick, because I'm noticing I don't know anything about this app, but there's like people on a chat here, so I just want to
Oh
shout out
yeah,
to
we've
people.
been yeah
Okay,
we've
shout
been
out to
showing on the screen, making sure everyone sees that we're live as well. So
all
thank
right.
you to everyone watching.
Shout out to Vince Steele, who is one of the better big men out on the Indies. I know Vince for a long time, and he good hard worker there. He's a good dude.
Definitely. Let's start showing some pictures though, because I wanted to bring out some stuff to see some stories out of you guys.
Okay.
Especially, let's get into this. Let's go with Deranged first. I pulled up this one from his earlier days.
Oh Jesus
Let's talk about
Christ!
this look right here, because
I need more of an internet presence. Because this is all there is on the internet. That's from the doghouse.
yeah,
That I believe was during a little time where I was in a stable with Homicide, Boogaloo, and Lowrider, and we were called Psycho Circus.
okay.
That's why we were wearing the jumpsuits and stuff. Um, that's actually a look that was borrowed by another stable. I won't name any names, but you know, we were kind of rocking those jumpsuits first.
Were you expecting the unexpected?
I
I talk shit, but I was just talking to Joel today.
but you can expect the expected with certain people. But yeah, those jumpsuits, that was our thing for a little bit, and then
Yeah,
when we saw other people wearing them, we were like, all right, we're taking these off now.
yeah.
But yeah, that picture, I'm really sad that that's kind of the best the internet has to offer of me. It's from like 1999 or some 2000 or something.
Hey
Yeah.
man, you can't tell Google what to put up there first.
Yeah. Oh, we do have something else that you brought up the match earlier, so we have a clip. Let's show something here for you outside of just the picture. So we'll be right back.
Okay.
And a pushing on arm drag. Nice move. Pushes Goshaw, has him up. Look at this. Into a Frankenstein. Hold on, goes for the cover. And
So from that same debut, so how did that feel? Again, you're talking about the world famous ECW arena, getting to do that again with Ghost. How was that mentality that day? How was that being in front of that again loud crowd because you could hear it in the video?
Yeah, wow. Man, that is literally one of my favorite matches still to this day. Um, Me and Ghost Shadow ran it back so many times, but that one in particular, of course, is special because where it took place, the ECW arena, iconic building. I never thought I would be wrestling there ever. You know, um, that was my debut. It was my first independent wrestling match, paid gig ever. And it was the same for Ghost Shadow, and it's funny because I was like so nervous. Like I always had anxiety issues as a wrestler. You know, that's why I was always like to myself and stuff. But I was super anxious, like to the point where I felt like throwing up, blacking out. I was even considering like chickening out that night too. I was gonna tell Frank like, listen, forget it, I can't do this. And and I remember like I guess somebody mentioned it to Balls Mahoney, like rest in peace to Balls too. He was one of my favorite people. Balls Mahoney like tried to make it worse for me. Like he was like emphasizing on the fact that he was like, what? Oh, oh, you're nervous? You're nervous? Well, you don't want to choke in front of this crowd. This is the ECW arena. They'll eat you alive if you fuck up. You better not choke tonight. Like he was trying to fuck with me, and I was like, oh my god, like it was so bad. But then I got out there, and uh I didn't get a reaction, obviously, because no one knew who the hell I was or what I was capable of. I was like 120 pounds, and you saw what I was wearing. I didn't look like a wrestler, so people were already giving me a hard time, making fun of my weight, saying I needed to eat something, all these skinny jokes. And in my head, I'm just like, all right, we'll see what you're gonna say when this is over. Um, and then the match starts, and we get through a couple of spots, and then I get out of the ring, and I was confused. I didn't know if I wanted to be a face or a heel, but I was kind of acting kind of heelish because I always assumed that people would get behind Ghost Shadow, and like I'm like acting like I don't want to hear anybody's shit, and then I come running back to the ring to get into the next spot, but somebody had spilled beer on the floor, and I slip on the fucking beer and bust my ass, and everyone's cracking up, laughing at me, and I'm like, all right, this is gonna be a bad night, just like I thought. It's not gonna go well. Like I thought that was an omen there, but I got back in the ring, and we kept it going from there, and it was just crazy because like after every spot we did, the crowd just got louder and louder, and the chants got crazier and crazier. And next thing you know, I'm hearing this match rules, this match rules, and I'm like, I can't even believe it. Yeah, and then it was just clean through and through to the end, and I gotta really shout out Ghost Shadow for that. I gotta thank him a lot because um Ghost Shadow kind of took a liking to me early, like before I even got to the doghouse. I met him at this spot called Pedro's, and I know Steve knows a lot about that spot. It was another little spot in Brooklyn with a wrestling ring that sucked really bad, but a lot of people came from there first before they even ended up at the doghouse. Amazing Red, the SAT, Quiet Storm, Steve, Julius Smokes, Low Key, Homicide, Low Life Louie. A lot of guys passed through there first. Um, and I hope to hear more stories about that in the future from people. But I met Ghost Shadow there. Um, and he already had like kind of started taking a liking to me and doing things with me, teaching me lucha libre stuff. Like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even done lucha. Period. Like I was doing stone cold stunners and elbow drops before I met Ghost Shadow. I'm not even gonna lie, and maybe a swanton bomb because I was a Jeff Hardy mark, but I didn't know shit about lucha. Um, Maybe a couple of arm drags that someone else taught me, but that's it. And then we ended up in the doghouse, and he was the one that really was in the ring with me, like every day we were there, like showing me all this stuff, just for the hell of it, like, cause he wanted someone to base, he wanted someone to do all this lucha shit that he knew, and he would choose me to do it with, and we would run these head scissors spots and these arm drag spots over and over and over again. I swear to you, not even exaggerating. He'd make me do the same like arm drag and head scissors like 50 to 100 times in one night because it was never
time. Because I would be there to watch, and Ghost Shadow would legit. No, you're not turning, bro. You're not understanding me. You got to turn just a little bit, bro.
It would be the smallest detail.
Yeah,
it would look fine to anyone else. It would look fine, but the Ghost Shadow was like, "No, bro. Like your arm is not your hand. Like your leg. Like it was always these little minute details." And it's his fault. I'm such a perfectionist now, but I gotta thank him for that because it's why if people say that I'm a good wrestler or whatever they say about me, it's because of that. Because working out with him every day, like it had me obsessed with like perfecting things and really like paying attention to detail, and you will see it in that match. You'll see us do a lot of things that people try to do today, and it's just not that clean. It's not as clean as you saw there, that little Hurricane Rana spot we did. That was our own unique variation where we go from a body scissors up to the shoulders, and no one had ever done that before us. Like we came up with that, but like just the way we did the Rana, so clean, like right through his legs, hooking right into his, right around his legs and everything. Like you don't see that a lot anymore because people don't really pay a lot of attention to those details. They just kind of just do things, and I'm grateful to him for that. And if it wasn't for him carrying me like that through those matches, I really don't think Deranged would have been a thing ever. Like no one, I don't think I would have been booked more after that. I don't think I would have grabbed Ring of Honor's attention so much, if it wasn't for that. Like Ghost Shadow and Quiet Storm played a big part in me, my wrestling style, and the attention to detail that I put in, and me executing moves as clean as I do. I give like Quiet Storm and Ghost Shadow all the credit for that.
Hey, let me ask you something real quick. Two things.
Yeah.
First, you said you slipped on the beer. You felt like how good did it feel though after that initial downfall? But at the end of the match, the entire crowd gave you guys a standing ovation. And then the second part, how good did it feel, or how did it feel when after almost a decade-long absence, your Ghost Shadow's first match back at Homicide Show in Brooklyn, and you two got a chance to get a little interaction with each other after all those years? What was that like?
That was like a dream. Like it felt like a dream because, when you're young, you don't anticipate being a part of history of any kind. Like I obviously lived far from normal life, teenager's life. And back then, back in the day, I didn't ever expect to have people coming up to me 20 years later telling me, you had this kind of impact on how things are right now, or you were part of something special. Or some people want to throw the word legend at me. I still don't really know how to receive that because I don't look at myself that way, but I guess in that small scope of things, whatever, but to see Ghost Shadow on the other side of the ring like that 20 years later in New York, in Brooklyn, where it started for us, like that was just nuts to me. Like it just felt weird. I thought I was dreaming. Like I wish we would have had like a one-on-one contest after that to really like run it back, but that didn't exactly play out that way. But yeah, it's surreal, like because you just going like back then. I did not think 20 years later I would be any sort of a deal in anyone's mind. Like for people to say that I'm a big deal for the New York wrestling's history and stuff, and Ghost Shadow too, and you, like we were just having fun. We were just having fun. We were just showing up to wrestle and not thinking anything of it. And to hear people say all these things about us, it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel like I did something, in life,
Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember seeing me, but when your match was taking place at Homicide show, I think I just got changed. I still had no shirt on, and I snuck all the way up to front row because you guys were like 2 or 3 matches after me, and I was sitting watching front row, waiting just for you guys. And I remember talking to you in the back, both of you guys. I didn't want to know anything that you were going to do, even though I heard because I was around and I heard some of the stuff you guys were doing. But like I just wasn't like trying to. I wanted to be surprised and be a fan, and like
yeah,
it was cool because just like with Eric and just like Dixie and Dragon and even Jay Lethal up to a certain point, a lot of the guys, and now Santana and Ortiz, I look at you guys as all as my kids because I was there when you first started, and I'm here now watching you guys grow up as men and becoming fathers and teachers and whatever it is that we're all becoming as we get older. You guys are doing it and you're respectful with it. Guys like Arcadia as well, who I love watching all you guys. So when you guys had that, like I was like a proud dad of all all the guys in that match. I kind of had some sort of connection, but you two especially because for so many years I tried to get Ghost Shadow to come out of retirement, and like I almost had him a couple of times, but he would only come out for you. You know what I mean? And that to me was like, all right, that's dope because I know like with CZW when I was helping out down there, I kept trying so hard to get him. Come on, please. They're asking for you. There's people that have been asking for you because the way he disappeared, it really just was like gone. He really was a ghost. You know what I mean? I mean, we talked to him because we still knew him outside, but like even then, like I know I only talked to him on occasion, but like when you guys had that interaction, for me, I was just in bark out mode because of shit like that. I was like, man, it's so cool that I got to see their first match of Philly, and now years later, I'm watching them go at it again, and
that's
I'm like,
crazy.
like I said, I don't know if you because I was the big motherfucker with no shirt on, so I was watching Mark it out. I was like, yes,
I was shitting myself as usual, like nervous before the match, and like me and Ghost Shadow even had a little bit of a heated back. We got into it backstage because we couldn't agree on a certain spot or whatever, and that's normal for us though. We always like get like hot at each other over dumb shit like that. But so it was funny because no one had any clue that went down. But yeah, and I won the match with that spot, that same move that you just showed the clip of. I pinned Ghost Shadow with that spot. So now that you mention it, it is kind of crazy and surreal. I also had like I got to run it back with Corvis in 2015 at UWA Elite, or 2016, right? That was a banger that no one got to see.
Like like UWA is very niche. It's very family. But I remember because you had reached out to Arcadia first because I think you guys wrestled there first, and I was like, well, if you're gonna be here, like we're gonna have to wrestle, and that's another weird thing. Just like the riding a bike aspect of how long you can go without talking to somebody or wrestling somebody, and then you see each other again and it's like no time has passed and you get in the ring and the chemistry's all still there. That's I think that's a underrated part of what pro wrestling is every time that happens, how warm like it makes you feel as just like a person, because growing up we all lose contact with one another, and like you said, kids, jobs, all that shit. But for some reason, when you come back to wrestling and you're at a show and you're talking to all those same people, the conversations are exactly the same. And it is literally like getting in a time capsule, like no time has passed. And then you step in the ring with them, and yeah, maybe your body's not listening to you as well as it did 20 years ago. But all of that emotion, all of that chemistry, all of that love is all still there, man. And I think that's my favorite part of what pro wrestling is. Like getting in there and getting to do what we do is awesome, but it's the relationships that we make with all of these people along the way. Like I know that wrestling gets a bad rap when it comes to like snakes and people politicking and people like talking shit about you behind your back. But at the end of the day, if I listed my top 10 best friends on the planet, I would say 8 of them are wrestlers.
Yeah. And it's probably wrestlers that you had fucking beef with at some point.
Yeah.
That's
Because it's
how
all
It's brother
Yeah.
shit, brotherly quarrels.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And it's funny that Mack brings that up about being there for that first match as well. I wanted to show this little clip. It's not as good as the first one for Deranged, but we'll be right back because there's a funny part that happens after the match concludes.
Attacking these two guys. How are these guys showing out here? They're going right after Deranged. The hit squad will issue an open challenge here tonight. Just sweeping out these two cruiserweights. The one, Kibarsi Plex by Monsta Man on Deranged. The Mafia, don't do it. Don't do it. He has him up. Burning Burning hammer. Right down on the top of his head. Good God almighty. I don't believe it. Burning hammer.
Yeah, you had to kill him day one, huh, Theo?
That was the rite of passage back then. Everybody took the burning hammer and the clothesline and the suplex. So
Oof.
That was I guess they were breaking us in, welcoming us.
well, look at it this way. You guys, Jay Lethal, Ray Child, Dixie, Dragon, everybody, you know, their first big thing was to have a run-in with the Hit Squad. So you
Man, couldn't even enjoy that standing ovation.
no, hell no.
See, mine was backwards. You guys did the run in on me and yanked me out of the crowd.
At least you were able. You
I didn't
were
do
able,
shit.
Deranged, you were able to look at us and see us coming.
I was scared,
I don't know where the hell.
dude. No one told me that was gonna happen,
That's even better.
and I think that was that was another time too. You guys got in the ring and had chairs in your hand and everything. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Dude, JP did that shit all the time. 3 different matches. People would just come running in, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" I'm getting
And then
choke slammed. I'm getting choke slammed over the top rope through a fucking table. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Why were you
dude.
gonna let any of us know this shit?
Yeah, and then I think the time I'm talking about with the chairs, the Hit Squad pick us up as if they're gonna torpedo us into the walls again, and I'm like, hold on, no one told me. I didn't agree to it this time. But then they were just faking the crowd and they just put us down. But I was fucking terrified.
I mean, listen, you know, back then it was a different time, and so had to establish dominance. I don't know.
Shit.
Honestly, though, if not for you guys and everybody that we had run-ins with, who would the Hit Squad be? You know what I mean? Because, like I said before, it's a give and take. When we gave it to you guys, we also, you know, made sure that we took from you guys. That way, you know, it wasn't just one-sided. Because I'm pretty sure we all traded pinfalls or we all traded something in order for, you know, whatever Hit Squad nonsense came, you guys got the receipt on us in one way or another.
Sure
We
did.
always made sure that that's what happened because yeah, we could be dominant bullies and nobody ever get anything on us. Who's going to want to see that? You're going to want to see the guys get their comeuppance. And we always made sure that if you were putting your body on the line for us, that we would try to do our best to make sure that you come out looking better than ever before and you're elevated. You know, and that wasn't just me and Mob, that was Homicide, that was Key, that was a lot of guys that we were with. Not everybody, but a lot of guys that we were with. We all tried to do that because, again, we knew that we may not all be on the same page when it comes to certain ideologies or certain philosophies, but we all knew that in order for this wrestling thing to succeed and for us as a whole to succeed, we had to work well with each other, you know? And yeah, some guys, like, you don't want to ride in a car with certain guys for whatever reason. Like, they talk too much or maybe they just say the most annoying shit. But when you got to the building, you work with them and you did great work. You know, it goes back to what Corvis was saying about chemistry. Moff and I could go 20 years without talking. And the second we get booked for a match together, It's as if we were teaming up yesterday at fucking Bayonne or wherever the fuck we were booked. And it's always like that. We always have that chemistry no matter what. And it's like that with the guys that you work with too. There's a lot of guys that I'm sure, we're all, oh, well, AARP's calling soon. You know what I mean? But if you say, hey, you want to wrestle? Fuck yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. I got my boots. You know what I mean? And that's just the excitement of being, even if there's no crowd, the excitement of being in the ring and sharing that brotherhood with guys that put their bodies on the line just as much as you did. And I think a lot of people don't understand that about pro wrestling is that you are putting your body on the line every time. Like Deranged said, he broke his neck. I'm sure Corvis has had his share of bad injuries. I know I've had mine. You put your body every time you step in the ropes on the line. And it's like, if you can't respect that someone else is doing that for you, you don't belong in this. Because that's the first thing that you have to recognize is that there is a very high risk. Look, we all grew up loving Misawa. Misawa died in the ring from something that, what happened to Big E 2 weeks ago? Big E broke his neck almost the same exact way, same vertebrae. Lucky he didn't die, but it's one of those things, just a half an inch off, and you might not wake up. And you have to understand that when you share a ring with someone who's willing to put their body on the line like that, you have to respect them no matter what. I may not like you, but because you're willing to do this with me, and we'll work together, I'll respect the hell out of you. And whenever we get in the ring, if it's good, then why shouldn't we do it no matter what? How much we hate each other. If we know that it's going to bring people in and give us money and put us in a better place, why not? You know what I mean? But, at the same time, then there are those guys that don't respect it, and you kind of just like keep them away from me, And I think, you just got to be careful. You're treading water, but when you see like Ghost Shadow and Deranged and Corvis doing some of the stuff that I've seen Corvis do that I'm like, how? You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to understand that they put this pact together in order to entertain. And like, there's no way you can't not respect them. One of my favorite memories, actually, I don't know if Corvis remembers, and like if it wasn't because I think of it in the way that I think of it, because when I look back at my career, I look at like who the famous people that I've been in the ring with. The Dudleys, the Samoans, the Road Warriors, Demolition, the Steiners. You look at the famous tag teams that I've been in the ring with. You have to share the ring with the New Age Outlaws. You remember that, Corvis?
I do.
It was one of my favorite matches, and wasn't Sanchez in the match, right?
I had that match written down. I was going to ask about that.
It was like the most random match, but we all got to share the ring with the New Age Outlaws. And here we are. We're like, all right, well, we're not really sure if these guys are going to be dicks because they're the big famous tag team, but they were cool as hell. And like, they let us get off it. They were like, what do you guys want to do? When they could have totally just taken rank and, let us, make us follow them. They gave us a lot of free say, and it was so cool to learn in that environment, and like I said, I got to share that with Corvis, which is how many people could say that? You know what I mean?
I don't know if you remember this. So because we were all in the ring during that promo segment, we were all kind of like standing next to one another.
Out.
and I swear to God, and you were just like, I know I'm supposed to be really tough and mean right now, but no dog's putting a promo on us, and I'm marking the fuck out, man. and those moments can't get lost on you, because like even when we were in the back, everything was professional as fuck. But I remember you, me, Quest, and Moff, as soon as Billy and Dog left the room, were like, "Oh, that was like we're all still fucking marks to an extent. You have to fucking enjoy those moments. You know what happened after that? Like what that led to for us? Because me and Quest had the tag titles not too long after that. Was me and Quest versus Necro Butcher and Road Dogg. What the fuck?
Like, that's the most random pairing ever.
What is wrestling?
It's crazy because I tried to find footage of that. I couldn't find from that exact match.
I
found from the one that happens after with Necro and Brody. So I have a clip of that to show you.
That's one of my favorite matches of all time.
So that was the match I was looking, because again, I was like, let me find certain dates. Like I found that 4-way between you guys. It was in June 27, 2009. That it was Garden State Gods. It was Heavy Hitters, Az and Sanjay, and then they were called BKM, which was New Age Outlaws.
Yeah.
It was like I could clearly see us standing on the floor by the corner, and they're all doing, the whole promo. And I remember looking at Eric and like,
I was wording along with it.
yes, both of us, we were both saying it. Actually, I started screaming it when he did, let's get ready to start. Like we were both in all of our glory in total workout mode, because we got, how many people got to ever work with them on the indie level? Like usually they get brought in, they wrestle other not indie names, but top TV guys. You know what I mean? So we're looking at it like, this is fucking dope. And this is a great opportunity. And actually it was a great match. I remember being a dope match, like I said,
they gave us all like way more than any of us thought. Like I got to bump Billy Gunn, who's like at least half a foot taller than me.
Hey.
And I remember having to be like, are you sure?
Yeah.
That's funny, because when we were feuding with when Special K was feuding with Just Incredible and Carnage Crew, like Logan DeVito and ROH, it was the same thing. It was the same thing. Like I look back at some of these matches that we had with them, and Just Incredible is like selling for me like I'm fucking Hulk Hogan or something. Like I'm like, he shouldn't even. I'm getting mad because I'm like, why am I punching him and he's selling like that? Like I don't want, I don't like seeing it, but at the same time, I'm grateful that he came in so humble and like was willing to put us over like that and make us look good. A lot of these guys are super, super humble, and it used to always surprise me.
On my Twitter, I just put over Scott Hall. Obviously, he passed away, and he was a lot of guys' favorite because he was such a cool character. But I got to work like, I think about 10 shows where we shared the locker room together, and I had a match with X-Pac, and Scott Hall just showed up. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was in town, and him and Pac were hanging out. So he showed up, and he told the promoters, like, no, I'm going to work for free. Don't worry. I'm going to go out. We're going to make this match fun. And we're working, and he gave me stuff. Now, I'm 5'9", maybe 5'10" with my boots on. You know what I mean? But, like, he's still 6'5", 6'6", Scott Hall. And, he was in decent shape. He's still thick. You know what I mean? It was only like maybe 3 or 4 years after TV, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember.
And he was selling for you?
He was selling for me. And when we were in the back, he was feeding ideas for me and Pac. But then he would also ask for my input. And I'm like, man, I'm working X-Pac. I don't expect to do shit but bump for him. Pac is telling me, you're going to give me this move, you're going to do that move. What do you want to do? And then Scott Hall's like, bro, you should do this, and giving us. And he was the agent of our match without even knowing what, like I didn't know back then what the agent was, And he's telling us all this stuff. I'm like, how the fuck gets to experience this? Like, where else? In the NFL, are you ever going to, you could be a linebacker. Are you going to experience what playing with Lawrence Taylor is like? No. You know what I mean? You could be in the NBA. Are you ever going to know what it's like to be with LeBron James right away? No.
Yeah.
But we got this opportunity to work with the guys that we all loved and get their respect. And, like, that's the coolest shit ever. And then when they see that you know how to work right, they really give you more. And, like, it's, like, fucking insane. Like, I got Eddie Guerrero's number. And he said, he got mad at me. We talked a couple of times. He called me. He was like, how come you don't call me? You need to be calling me more. I was like, I'm sorry, Eddie. I didn't want to bother you. I know. And he was on WWE TV. You know what I mean? And, like, I was like, fuck, man, that's so crazy. That, like, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm just fucking Fat Steve. You know what I mean? And, like, all these guys are giving us all this love. And, we're very fortunate, all of us. And the guys that we're with, that a lot of those guys, the older generation, they see us and they respect us. Because they see us working their kind of style. And we remind them of when they were our age and younger and the hustle that they brought, and it's like, man,
here we are.
Cool.
Here we are. Now we're that guy.
Yeah. Now we're the Incredibles and the Scott Halls, but, not as
kids.
I was going
These young kids.
Like, no, because that's the thing. It is, like, for example, when Deranged was in the multi-man at GCW and stuff, Like, I'm sure he was doing the exact same fucking thing. I'm sure he was imparting his knowledge and coming up with ideas. And like, when you work with younger guys, I'm sure you do the same thing. I know that I try to do the same thing because you never know the effect that you're going to have on somebody, you know? Like, for Scott Hall, those were probably just like nothing memories for him. But for you, that's like shit you're going to be like telling your kids for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like that day with the New Age Outlaws and us, that was just a booking for them. For us, like, we were living in a moment. And even though that we're not at that level, and we'll never be at that type of level, but we could still have an effect. You know, there's still people that are probably going to look back on memories with the three of us as like really, really distinct memories that stand out to them.
Nobody should ever underestimate the effect they're having on somebody, especially in wrestling, because I'm shocked at the people that have come to me and told me that I influenced them in some way. Like, to name a couple that kind of shocked me that I did not expect. I remember Rich Swann telling me that he watched me before wrestling. DJ Z, what do they call him now in NXT?
Joaquin Wilder.
Yeah.
Okay. He requested that I be in his final indie match before he left to NXT. Like, so I was in a 4-way with him, Gringo Loco, and Flip Kendrick.
God damn, that's a dope ass match. What company was that for?
AIW.
If you guys send me that video, please.
Yeah, I looked on IWTV for him. For some reason, it's not there. It's like all the shows around it are there, but that show is not there. I don't know why, but MJF was on that show too, and
find us and tag us and send that video to us.
It was a crazy show. Yeah, I'll try to find it, but yeah, he wanted me to be in that match. He said it was special to him. He always wanted to work with me, and I was wondering why. But when I met him, when we were there, he explained to me that he was at the very first Ring of Honor show in Pittsburgh.
He designed the logo.
Yeah, and he designed the logo
for Ring of Honor.
And that was like a fan thing that he submitted, whatever. But like, he was at his first indie show was the first Pittsburgh ROH show. And that show opened with Special K cutting a promo. And then I think you guys came out or something.
I think we did. And it was with us and Carnage Crew and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you were like Razor's Edged me out of the ring and Slugger caught me or something like that.
Yeah.
But
it was a safe landing though. See?
Yeah, Slugger caught me. But he told me that when we came out, that was his first moment, like, realizing that he could do it too, that he could be a wrestler too, because he had never seen guys his size doing it before until that moment. So like, him seeing Special K like made him realize, oh snap, I could be a wrestler too. I'm gonna go for it, you know. And it gave him that confidence. And look at him now, you know. Like, and I've had a couple of other people approach me and tell me that they used to watch me too, and MJF too even told me. Like, I remember like walking up to him, like I think it was at one of those collective shows in New Jersey, whatever, and I forgot why I was approaching him, but I was like, hey, and MJF, and I don't think he was in AEW yet or was about to be, but I was like, hey, MJF, can I talk to you for a second? Do you remember me? It's Deranged. It's like, at first I thought like it was a shoot, but he turned around in front of like all these fans. He was like, don't ever fucking ask me if I fucking remember who you are ever again. Of course I know who the fuck you are. You're deranged. I fucking grew up watching you. Don't ever ask me that again. I was like, okay, you know, and you know, that's when I realized, I was like, I gotta stop underestimating like the impact that I had on people or the shit that I've done, because damn, like, these are people that I look up to now, you know, and telling me that I influenced them, you know.
So what's cool for me is I wasn't with the company anymore, but I got to go to New York to watch Ring of Honor, and I saw you and Adam with the ROH tag belts. And you know, when I was in Ring of Honor, everybody assumed that the Hit Squad was going to be like the first or second ROH Tag Team Champions, but it didn't happen. And that's one of the, like, it's not a regret, but it's something that I wish did happen. But that I got to see you guys and Dixie hold those belts was cool as fuck to me. But then one of the other cool things was after that time, I start working for Beyond, and I remember Eric going to Ohio and working for them and hearing about them. We talked about it a few times, and then like when I start working for Beyond like they had hit one plateau, and then me and Moff joined, and it hit like a totally different. It skyrocketed, but up until that point, the biggest like historical feature in that company was Eric Corvis. Between him and Dickinson, they were like the two godfathers of that place. And like it's cool for me because like they established their own shit.
Yeah.
But, after JAP and they did their own thing in another place. And like people like they would have I don't know if you remember I'm sure you do. The at FET there was the cage match and you guys were a part of all that, and they were going nuts for everything that Eric was doing. All those guys, because that was pretty much like the Beyond original guys in that match. And everything that they were doing, the place was lit. And when I say lit, I mean, I love FET music. The building itself, it's just an awesome venue. But when those fans were into somebody, like they would stab and shoot motherfuckers for them. You know what I mean? And I saw that day the impact that Corvis had there. And like, to me, that I never said anything because like, I know that he had his space and we were trying to establish ourselves, but like at the same time, it was like, man, this is so fucking cool that all the guys that I had some little part in at somewhere, they're all making their shit. And like, I'm proud of all you guys because, like I said, we all came from the same place. It all goes back to Frank and Bobby Lombardi. And we came from one of them, if not both. And to see everybody do their own thing. We didn't all get on TV. We didn't all get contracts or whatever. But we all did stuff that if, God forbid, we don't wake up tomorrow and they ask us, are you proud of all this stuff? I'm pretty sure all three of us can say we're proud of everything that we've done because we never thought, we all said it before, we all came from a different background, but it was similar. We never thought we were going to do much outside of, just hanging on the corner or whatever it is that we grew up in, the environment that we grew up in. We all had different things, but like it's so fucking cool to see. And there's other guys too, you know what I mean? Like but it's cool to me that I get to see all these guys become, like I said before, become men. And I don't know if this generation will ever say that about each other, but like I'm proud as fuck to say I know these two guys because we came up in a place where it was like I said before, it was sharks. And you either got eaten up or you swam. And, everybody was able to swim. And not only swim, but dominate in other areas, not just the area that we came from. So, like, for me, that's cool as fuck. I don't know about anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, you don't hear much about, like, actors saying that. Like, you might have a couple of guys that are cool. And they'll be like, yeah, my guy, he won the Academy Award. That's dope. But, like, nobody dominates. But, like, with this, I got to see, like I said, everyone establishing their own legacy. And that's fucking cool. That's all I can really say. And I'm proud of you guys because I know, like I said, we all came from a hard place. You guys made some shit out of whatever the fuck we were given, and you did great with it. You know what I mean? So it's right what MJF said. You should never doubt anyone. You know what I mean? Yourself especially, because the reach that we had, it caused a whole generation to follow us into wrestling. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us started because of Attitude Era, but post Attitude Era, a lot of guys were just watching indies and they saw us and the old stuff that we had, and they got influenced by that. And there you go. And like it's cool that no matter what, they can't take that away from us. That's our legacy. That's our history. We have our own little spot in the history of pro wrestling. We got spots with Bruno Sammartino and Terry Funk and Rey Mysterio, you know what I mean? We got spots with those guys, and that's cool, man. Where else can you say that but pro wrestling?
You got any more clips, Raymond?
I got one. I want to bring up that tag match that Corvis got to have. And it was those Garden State Gods there. Let's bring up that clip from that tag match.
Steampunk
All this action, we still have 2 more matches to go. If the ring holds up. Brody Lee comes charging. Quest got that knee buried deep right in the sternum. He has him in a hangman's neck breaker. Quest comes off with that stomp. Beautiful.
So I can only imagine like a match like that has to, at the time, again, Brody and Necro being a dominant team right there. How did that feel? And again, years later now, how does it have to feel? I can only imagine.
Well, I mean, of course, after Brody's passing, that match has a completely different meaning and feel. But if I try to go back to my head back then, like, we were tag team champions going into that match. Like, they actually did, like, we ran with the tag team titles for, like, a good year, having, like, some really good tag matches and really hit our stride. But that was a match that really, really tested us, because we had been wrestling groups like the Osirian Portal.
We had wrestled Dixie and Azrael were a tag team, DNA in Jersey Opo for a little bit. Those are the teams we were wrestling. And then out of nowhere, we're wrestling Necro and Brody. We're wrestling the Hillbilly Wrecking Crew. And Brody did not show up to the show on time. Necro had showed up late because he had his wisdom teeth out the day before, missed his flight, showed up to the match as the music of the match before us was ending. So like, Necro got there maybe minutes before we went out, told us that it was okay for us to hit him as hard as we could in the face because it was numb from getting his wisdom teeth taken out, and that it would probably bleed, which would make the match better. And then all the spots and stuff we just did with Brody, and it's very similar to like what I was saying about Billy Gunn before. Brody's huge, you know? And he let us hit all of our shit on him, man. And we lost the tag team titles there. But they left, and me and Quest were literally kneeling in the middle of the ring, and we got a standing ovation as the losers after that tag match. And that's probably my only like standing ovation in Jersey All Pro, because I was never really in those like high level marquee matches, but I wanted to show that if you put us in that type of match, we could 100% deliver. We could keep up, if not surpass the people we were wrestling. And I'll still watch that match every now and again, like every couple of months, just to kind of relive it, because so much of it was just in the moment, you know, because like with Necro not showing up until right before, we didn't plan much. We had a finish idea. We had some spot ideas with Brody. Otherwise, it was just like off to the races. And Necro and Brody already are very unpredictable. So we had no idea what was going on. Dude, I got hit in the head with a school desk right in front of Sam Roberts, who was terrified that Necro was going to hit him with a school desk. Like legitimately like sounding like he's going to piss his pants on commentary. I got hit in the dick with a volleyball twice. I got hit with the rack that holds the chairs. Like they lawn darted Quested to garbage cans. Like there was so much of it that was just on the fly, but in enjoyment. Yeah. And then I was flying high after that match, man. I'll put that up with like one of my top 5 favorite matches of all time.
Yeah, I think you were pretty underrated when it came to being innovative.
What was that, Deranged?
No, I think Corvis was pretty underrated when it came to being innovative. Like I remember when he started coming up like that, you had that new gear, the steampunk look and everything. And I was noticing like you were busting out all these moves I had never seen before. Would have never thought of, like, you know, and at the time everybody was just stealing shit, you know, stuff and doing what we did, and like you were doing your own thing, like, and I really noticed that, like, you were really taking your time out to stand out and be unique, and like you had a lot of innovations that I don't think you get enough credit for. So I just want to give you props now while I can for that. You know,
I appreciate that a lot, man. Like I struggled a lot with character growing up. coming up through the business. I mean, like I struggled a lot with my character and trying to find something that connected. And what led to the steampunk thing actually was somebody was giving me props on the innovation thing. Like, oh man, you do all these cool things, but you don't have anything that connects. He's like, you can't make cool moves a gimmick. And I was like, watch me. So I came up with like the steampunk character as like a mad scientist, and like how the moves are my creations, you know. And I'm like, fine, I'll turn moves into a gimmick.
And then, I don't think that was a thing yet, right? That like, I didn't see a lot of people doing that steampunk thing yet. You were like the first person I saw to do that.
I got it on the ground floor, and then Becky Lynch, came out on NXT, and I had 127 Twitter notifications. And then I watched it, and I was like, all right, well, I guess we're moving on to a different gimmick now because I can't do this. I remember. That's a funny story because me and Quest were supposed to wrestle the Hit Squad at Beyond. And it was supposed to be like my coming full circle thing. Like, here's my trainers. I went out. I made a name for myself. I helped create this indie. They came in. They blew up in the indie. Now we're going to fight. And then Quest couldn't make it. And then I ended up being in a 6-person scramble match, and the match was still good. The match was still good, but when I was getting announced, like the whole crowd was like, "Whoa!" like singing Becky Lynch's song. So like, I threw in a couple of her moves on the fly during the match just to kind of feed into it. But then I took a little time off after that and kind of restructured everything. But
don't worry, I know what it's like to be ripped off a lot.
I can't imagine what you're talking about at all.
Yeah, I just
at least you guys don't have
I let it blow with the wind.
Pain. You know what I mean?
What?
At least you guys don't have authors who write about pain while you're in the runs showing up on literally the gear that we wore and the move set was everything they were, and those guys are cool. I met them, but at the same time, like I know for a fact that the WWE was watching every Indie and Beyond was one of the companies that they were keeping their eye on. And I know for a fact that they knew who the Hit Squad was. I had it confirmed to me after. You know what I mean? And I think the only reason why they didn't come to the Hit Squad was because those guys were 6'3", 6'4". But if me and Moff were that tall, that would have been us. You know what I mean? And that's not being dick about it. It's what it was, you know.
Wrestling, man.
I remember Dixie. I remember
keep getting better. That's it.
We all of us were definitely on their radar. Like I remember Dixie telling me a story about how Paul London told him that when he was in WWE, WWE approached him asking him how they could do the Special K gimmick in WWE, and according to Dixie, Paul London said that he told them, well, if you're not letting those guys do it, then there is no way to do it. And I guess they didn't want us because, we were like a bunch of 130-pound teenagers. So I don't, I get it. We didn't look like the, we didn't look like the standard for what WWE wanted. So, but again, I thought that was interesting that even special.
You don't get mad. You just get better. And then, like...
Oh, I was proud. I was super proud to hear that. I was proud. Like, I was proud to hear that. Like, that Special K was making so much noise that they even wanted to figure out how to do it there. Mm-hmm. With or without us, we got their attention and they wanted to copy it, So that's a compliment to me.
That's insane. Let's show a little more pictures now because I had some from Mack as well. Let's go back in some Glory Days here. Let's go with this one here first. Yeah. I tried to find the most throwback look for Theo Mack.
The Homicide Jr. look.
I think I saw that Steve Mack wrestle live
many moons ago.
My first indie show was at a Doghouse show, and it was when SAT and Red came to Pedro's to look for me because someone told them about me. They came looking for me, and they invited, they said they wanted to train me and stuff. but they invited me to a Doghouse show, and that's where I saw Julius Smokes for the first time. I saw Low Life Louis for the first time. I saw Monster Mack for the first time. Lathan, everybody was wearing freaking yellow camos and shit and camo pants and all that. Yeah, and I saw, and the one thing I don't forget about Monster Mac that night was he did a frog splash off the top rope, and he was big as hell, but he did the whole like D'Lo Brown version, like, you know, full extension, and I was like, God damn, I've never seen someone that big do a frog splash like that. So I never forgot. I never forgot that night. That was my first indie show.
Well, you know what it was? I grew up with Key. I mean, you know, we're cousins, but we grew up like brothers. So there's always that athletic competition. Who could run faster? Who could hit harder? Who could, you know, do this, do that? So for me, it was always trying to keep up with him coming off the top rope and being able to springboard, even though I could never springboard. And I curse everyone who can because fuck you, I want to be able to do it too. But, you know, like, I always found a way. And then having guys like Vader, who were big, and Bam Bam Bigelow, who, you know, big guys who would move and not wrestle like big guys, they influenced me. So I was like, all right, well, if they could do it, I could do it. It's like first time I ever hit the Van Terminator, I was just at the doghouse. I put the dummy in the corner, and I was just like, screw it, let me try. I just climbed up and just jumped, and nobody was even watching. Like, everybody was just having their whole conversation. And when I did it the second time, that's when somebody was like, what? And I did it again and jumped from corner to corner, and they were like, get the hell out of here. And like, I was feeling it. I was like, all right, this was up. And then like the next week, I was practicing the 450 with Boogaloo. And even though Boogaloo wasn't taking it, but he was watching me and critiquing. And like, I hit it one time. And then I was like, you know what? That's going to blow up my knees. I don't think I need to do that. I don't need to be that special. And maybe if I really need to break it out one day, maybe. But for the most part, you know, I knew my limits. But I always, it's that competition, then being around Homicide and you guys and everybody who we all worked out with, I was always trying my best to not look like a fat slob. And I know I wasn't a fat slob and whatever, but it was being a fat slob. But, you know, I was just trying to keep up so that I didn't look like that. You know what I mean? And just be different. So when I hit the frog splash the first time, I'm afraid of heights, but climbing the rope and being in the ring, I have no fear. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like Mike and Santana Ortiz, Mike and Angel, we'd do stuff and they'd be like, Steve, you're going to die. We can't do this with you. And I'd be like, but do it. We could. I'm telling you, I got this. And they, like, we would hit stuff and they'd be like, please don't ask us to do that again. I'd be like, no, it's cool. Don't worry. See, we lived. You know what I mean?
I think you hit a frog splash on me before. And that was the scariest moment of my life. And you also hit a Van Terminator on me too. You finished me with a Van Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you want to know the scariest frog splash that I've ever seen you do? So when I did my shows, I did the 3 little shows in Carteret at St. Joe's, and I had you run out to beat up me and my best friend Wes, who literally just trained pro wrestling to wrestle that one match and was never going to wrestle again. He just wanted to prove to himself that he could do it. And you gave him a frog splash, but like you gave him well, I know you're never going to wrestle again, so I want to make sure that you know what a frog splash feels. And I remember just seeing him like tense up, laying on the ground next to him, just tense up. And he tried to like lean away from you,
but you don't want to do.
Oh, then I'm just gonna come down even harder on you.
But a lot of like with Deranged style and your style, I feel like that's what Jersey All Pro was when I was coming up. You had like your strong style, and then you had like your high spot stuff. And I think that's what forced me into my style, because I wasn't either one of those things. Yeah, like I did like some of the strong style stuff just because I had to if I was wrestling at Jersey All Pro, but like that's what helped me develop the unique style of trying to come up with interesting moves that are intriguing to look at because I felt it was really my only way to stand out from the other styles that were already in Jersey All Pro Wrestling, you know, like, because I had that mindset too of that like competitive nature, like you were saying, like I wanted to be doing so much more like high flying than I was physically capable of. And I was like, well, how can I still get people to like pop for what I do without doing high spots?
Mhm.
But I did my first frog splash ever at a doghouse show, actually, too. And I still do that. So I guess that's my high spot.
That's awesome. I will say this, and I've talked to Ray about this a few times. Like, I know the light is at the end. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel for me in my wrestling career. And, like, it is sad that I won't be able to be in the ring and share this stuff. But at the same time, I'm grateful for everything I have, like I told you guys before. But I will tell you this. I'm not going to announce my retirement. I'll never be that guy. I'm going to retire because everybody retires and then they come back. But I will tell you this. If you ever see me do a moonsault and hit it, then you know that's one of my last matches because I'm saving it for that. You know what I mean? If I go for a moonsault and miss, I'm still going to wrestle. But if I hit it, then you know that's it. You know what I mean? It's called a day.
Moonsault.
Oh, there you go. Okay, before we start winding this down, because again, I don't want to take up too much more of any of your great time here, guys.
And old man Steve might be sleepy, I'm sure.
Well, I got to get about 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I get up at 4 a.m. every day too.
So there we go. Let's start winding it down. It's call time. So one more show that I want to talk to you all guys about, because I can imagine it definitely meant a lot. Because again, it's 20 years of a company being able to last. Let's talk about the anniversary show. A show that all three of you were able to be a part in different ways as well. Have pictures of everything. So let's talk about, for Corvis, how do you get to be able to call the night, be a part of it again, being the voice of it all?
When I had decided to take some time away from wrestling, Frank told me I wasn't allowed to not do something. And we were brainstorming, and the commentary desk got shuffled up a lot because the guys who were doing it originally were off doing other things or weren't available or what have you. And I mean, there's nobody in the locker room that's going to know more of the history of Jersey All Pro than somebody who's been part of it for as long as they were. So when he brought it up to me, I had Beyond Wrestling used to have wrestlers commentate the matches. And that's where I got my first taste of it. I would do a match, and then I would commentate one match of Beyond. And then somebody would request me commentate their match. So by the end of a Beyond show, I would have like 3 or 4 commentary gigs on top of my matches. And I started to really get into a flow of it. And when I decided to take my time off, I transitioned into full-time commentary for Beyond. And when me and Frank were talking, I was like, fuck it, like, let me do this here too. And I actually ended up doing like commentary for like Beyond, for Jersey All Pro, for GCW, a whole bunch of different places. I got really deep into that aspect because if I wasn't going to be wrestling anymore and I was still going to be a part of the business, I wanted to be in 100%. Yeah.
So like when you heard me commentating, I wasn't just commentating as a wrestler. Like I found out the story you were trying to tell. I found out everything about it. And I think that's something that lacks in wrestling sometimes nowadays is commentary telling the full story about what's going on. Because at the end of the day, like moves are moves. If you see somebody do like a double stomp off the top rope onto somebody, if you're a wrestling fan, you know that's a fucking double stomp off the top rope. You don't need to be like, oh my God, that's a double stomp off the top rope. Tell the story about how they got up to that move or the work that's being done on the midsection leading up to that kind of stuff. It gives you a different perspective, and Steve could attest to this because he stepped out of wrestling and did commentary for quite a bit. When you get back into the physicality, it gives you a completely different awareness of what wrestling is other than just being a pro wrestler. You start to understand what is making the crowds react. You start understanding placement in the ring even more than you did before because you're looking at it from a distance. You understand the storytelling aspect more. So I honestly think that like doing commentary made me a way better pro wrestler when I was ready to actually come back to it. But I got to commentate fucking Rey Mysterio versus Loki. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Real quick, I just want to say 2 of my favorite matches and beyond were commentated by Corvis. The first one is me and Moff against Gargano and Ciampa, and it was Dickinson and Corvis who commentated. And listening to the stories that they're putting, the 2 of them, Dickinson and Corvis, that they're putting into that match, because there's so much history with us, so much history with Gargano and Ciampa. And again, this goes back to what I was saying before about Eric's history with the company Beyond Wrestling and how he set and established that place with those guys. And like, you know, it's just great story. You can find it on YouTube, both matches. And then the second match was when we won the tournament for tomorrow finals, and it's him and Shug D, who are commentating. And you could tell that they're commentating, but they're also enjoying what they're seeing, because the last part of that match, it was me and Moff against Santana and Ortiz, and we're going like, it's like I said, that revitalized us to where we were better than our 2000, 2001, 2002 selves. We were in 2015 working for Beyond. Our game elevated, and part of it was because we had been in the game 10 years later, and we had learned a whole bunch of other things. And part of it was our chemistry, and we were in there with guys who were hungry. So their hunger forced us to step up. But when you watch and listen to what Shug and Corvis are saying, like that, just that last 10 minutes long, and the whole, it's like a 20-minute match, but the last 10 minutes just focused on us. And like you could tell without even knowing, something was being established, which would lead into Hit Squad versus EYFBO. But at the time, you don't really know that there's anything that's going to happen past that. But if you listen to the commentary that Corvis is providing, he's helping us tell the story too. And a lot of people don't understand that commentary, like he said, it opens up your field of depth, because you're not looking at it from in the ring, you're looking at it from a TV perspective, you know. And you know, it's cool that Corvis, like I said, called 2 of my favorite matches, not just in Beyond, but of all time. So, like, again, there goes. That's more shit that guys that I know that I'm proud of, and they help me do some cool shit. You know what I mean? So,
I appreciate that a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's move on to Deranged, because again, also that night, how did this get to feel? Again, it was almost the legends, the new school, getting to be involved with an H Effect reunion there against the legends of Magic, J Lover, and Crazy Ivan. How was that for you, Deranged? Oh,
Steve, you got to say something.
I booked that match.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. 7 minutes.
Yep.
Our big comeback.
Honestly, I wanted.
Return.
I felt like because it was the anniversary show, and you know, without Frank being there, I wanted to make sure that his legacy was shouted out. And Frank had something to do with everybody involved in that match, and they all had something to do with the history of that company from almost the beginning. You know, so when we were, it was in Bayonne that we set it up, right?
No, what, the match? This
Yeah.
match?
Yeah,
No, that was in Rahway.
Oh, it was either. I remember setting it up. No, but I'm saying the setup for it was we set it up in Bayonne because we had that match where it was like me and Moff against Homicide Joker. We did that angle in the stairway. You know what I mean?
I don't know anything about that because
I think you weren't there, but the setup was for them to call you so that way we can reunite you guys.
Okay.
But either which way, like it was to get the guys that was our core group of guys together. And, you know, I'll let Deranged speak about the match, but I'm just saying getting it together was to show, it was that shout out for the past and for Frank. Because Frank, everybody involved in that match, Frank had a really deep personal connection with at some point. And even though he didn't have the tight relationship with Deranged, he loved Deranged. And even though, you know, like with Dixie was always at his house. And like, you know, same thing with Saint Dragon. It was like and Magic was him and Magic started, and Jay Lover, they all started together, and Ivan was part of that whole group. You know what I mean? And it was like it, just like our little way of shouting out Frank for the night. You know, and it wasn't just me; it was Montron too, because we were the guys that were putting the stuff together. But we all were in agreement, like that was the match that we wanted to make sure was Frank's shout out for the night.
Oh yeah, that was it was definitely cool because Magic, Ivan, and J Lover were some of the first experienced veteran wrestlers I had met. Period. I met Ivan and Magic at the Jersey All Pro School when I started to wander off that way, away from the doghouse. You know, I would go there just out of curiosity, trying something new. Jay Lover, I met in the doghouse, and he was one of the first people to embrace me there and joke around with me and treat me like a kid brother and pick on me and all that, you know. So these guys were like, again, like the uncles I didn't have. And Dixie and Insane Dragon, Izzy, I hadn't been in the same ring with them like that since Ring of Honor, since our run in Ring of Honor at Special K. That was my first time in the ring with them again in like that had to have been like a decade or something, you know. And so I didn't even know what to expect being in the ring with them. I didn't know because they hadn't been in the ring for a while, so I didn't know how they were feeling, if they were still in ring shape. But they shocked me because we only did 7 minutes, but I saw Adam and Dixie like moving as if they had never left. Like I couldn't believe it. And you know, they didn't look exactly as they did back then. You know, we were all younger, but they really were moving like they did back then, and that was crazy. Like Adam just like never lost it. Like he was still doing all his crazy stuff, and Dixie was still being super animated with the selling, and it just felt good, man. And I wish that I wish we could have kept it going from there. I don't know what happened. Like they they kind of just
stopped running. JP stopped running because after Frank passed away, it was hard to come together for JP because he was the heart and soul.
yeah.
I mean, we would go there as like a family in a weird sort of way, and we didn't talk about wrestling. But because we were in Atlantic City, when we would come home, then that would put us in the mood to, all right, let's get this together and what are we gonna do, you know? And Frank had a big part of that, and with Frank being gone, it really was like the head being removed off the snake.
Yeah, it did feel weird. It
Yeah.
did feel strange.
Yeah, and I like I said, I tried, especially if you look at the last two shows that I was a part of, that I, you know, the last two shows period for JP, like I booked solid lineups, but it just wasn't the same, and
Yeah.
you know, it really, you know, Frank, there was such a huge hole placed because of the passing of Fat Frank that none of us could fill it. No team, no single person, nobody could fill it, and we tried our best. You know, if you look at the last two shows, I think everybody, with the exception of like maybe 3 guys, myself included, all got TV contracts or something in international. And that, I mean, that's a huge statement. When you look at 2 shows, I didn't use a lot of the same talent outside of maybe 5 or 6 guys. Everybody else, it was like one show was one lineup, the second show was another lineup. And like you look at it, and like I said, almost everybody there had a contract or international deal. But for whatever reason, combined, we drew 500 people for the 2 shows, which we were working with 900 to 1,200 per show when Frank was there. So it really was, you know, just that big hole was left, and it's just hard to. It's impossible to replace it. You know.
Yeah.
But I remember us talking about wanting to do more stuff with you guys, with you, Dixie and Dragon. And I think Dixie and Dragon were kind of like, because you know how they are. Even though we try to get them to come back, just have a couple more. No, I'm not too old for that shit. You know what I mean? To this day,
Yeah.
like, I still talk to Dixie almost every other week, and like it's the same thing. You know,
I visited Dixie multiple times trying to talk him into it.
Yeah.
And he says he's gonna consider it and let me hit the gym first, and then I never hear from him again. Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, Dixie is one of the smartest guys in wrestling that I've ever met.
It really upsets me that out of
So
all people, he didn't continue.
Genius.
Because when I watch back our matches, especially when me and him were tagging, I'm like, damn, man. Like, me and him had crazy chemistry, but like, he really like showed me a lot on how to like slow down and use psychology and be smart. And me and him had so much chemistry when it came to being a heel tag team. Like, I feel like I can't do that with anyone else. Like, I was just watching matches with him the other day with somebody else, and I was just like, I don't think I could ever be in a tag team again if it's not like with Dixie, you know. I wish he would come back. I'm still gonna work on it.
You know what I think would bring him back? I've had a handful of conversations with him as well because he's good friends with my cousin Anthony, who still lives in Bayonne. So like every now and again, like he'll be at the bar when I'm going to like hang out with my cousin, we'll bullshit. I think if somebody from the crew opened up a school, you'd get him back. He's a teacher, man.
Yeah.
Like when I talk to him about like how much gratification I get, like training younger kids and working with younger kids and helping, you see that excitement in his face. You see the idea of training people really exciting him. And I think that like if somewhere down the line somebody in the Jersey All Pro circle opened up a school that was within reasonable distance from Bayonne, and they talked to him about possibly like coming to be one of the trainers there, I think he would be way more open. I really do. Because like, you know, when you're talking to a wrestler and you see that look in their eye when you bring up something specific, like I told him, like, I would love to like wrestle you after all these years. Like, I never got to wrestle Dixie in a singles match ever. And he'll give you the like, oh yeah, like that would be cool, but like work, I'm old and stuff. The second we started talking, about like training and schools, he was like completely different. So like that's ultimately like my goal one day is like I want to be able to open up my own wrestling school. Like
I'm working on that out here in Texas.
That's where I get my most satisfaction, like seeing any kids I help on TV. Like you were saying, Steve, like that satisfaction you get from people that you were a small part of their growth. Like I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. So when I'm done wrestling, I want to train and I want to commentate. And I think like Dixie would legitimately be one of the first people that I reached out to. Number one, because of his mind. And number two, because I know he's not wrestling anywhere. Like he could literally dedicate whatever amount of time that he wants to training.
I got to get one more run out of Dixie before I'm done. HFX got to get one more run. I'm not going to allow this.
I know where it's at so I could go and watch.
I want to get Adam too, but I don't know what's up with him.
He's physically pretty beat up right now. He's going through some health issues at the moment.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
You know how that Bayonne lifestyle is.
Oh, okay.
Hard, bro.
Okay.
But like from what I understand, he has some health shit going on right now. So
he's got a lot of wrestling injuries from his
I don't know if that's going to be a big deterrent or not. I actually I saw him maybe 3 weeks ago just walking home from work down the street in Bayonne.
Wow.
I just moved my window down. I'm like, Adam, you motherfucker. He's like, oh shit. Oh shit.
But if you look at them, they didn't really age, the two of them. They look the same. Like
really?
It's pretty cool.
That's good.
Couple of extra pounds, but they look exactly the same. But that's all of us.
Yeah, well, some more than others.
So one last match to talk about from that show. Theo, let's talk about yours. Talk to us about that cage.
This was another shout out to Frank and JP. And so like originally Frank had passed away the year before. And there had been talk about, all right, so we're still going to have this show, or we're going to do the Hall of Fame. And we thought, you know, it should only be Frank in there. And in talking to Frank earlier that year, he had said, you know, next year I want to get the four of you guys in for the Hall of Fame. So, like, we were going into it with that. And then, like I said, we were doing the Beyond run, so the Hit Squad was blowing up. Homicide was still doing his thing. Key was still doing his thing. It was like, we all came home in a weird sort of way, like to do this big thing for JP and to shout out Frank. And, all of us had a little bit of say in the matches that night. All of us had a little bit of say in, the stories that went on. And, it really is coming back to being in there with your brothers. And, I remember the finish was supposed to be me doing the Superfly splash to Key off the top of the cage. However, early in the match, Key was standing on the top of the cage, and I don't remember if it was me or Moff, but knocked the cage so that he fell and took a seat onto the cage, and it left the cage. There's a picture of it where the cage went from being like this to now it was like this. So when I went up to the same corner, not looking up and realizing that it was like that, I'm climbing. I'm like, oh shit, I can't stand up here. It's too off balance, So like Moff is even trying to like climb up the side so I could balance off of him. I just can't. So I pulled Moff in, and we were standing on the top rope. And the only time ever we hit a double splash on the Key at the same time from the top rope. And like Key was mad after because Key, that was your moment to fucking shine. I was like, relax, bro. You still had a dope spot. And they made it looked like a buddy comedy, like cop movie, because we're both jumping in midair, me and Moff. And it looks super dope. Well, I'll send you the picture. So
I remember that.
But it was one of those things where, growing up with Key, that I always look at him as my little brother, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I'm just saying, he's my brother. You know what I mean? And he's younger than me, so by a couple of months. So it's always like that relationship. But we were able to do that stuff, being in there with Homicide, who he literally didn't know us. Only thing he knew about us was that me and Key loved New Japan. And we were talking about wrestling the way that him and his boys at the time were talking about wrestling. And he was like, you guys, I like you guys. I'm going to beat the shit out of you, but at the same time, I'm going to show you how to wrestle the right way. And, did that with us. It took us under his wing. And, it was just coming into JAP, nobody wanted us there. We're working for JP. Nobody wants us at their place because we work for JP. To now, all of a sudden, everybody wants us. Everybody wants to use us. And it was the four of us together all the time. If you saw one of us at one place, you knew the other three were going to come real soon. And it all started with JP. Realistically, is where we got to start with LIWF and Bobby Lombardi, but JP was what put us on the map. And we lost our brother, Frank. We had we were a ship without, a captain. And we were trying to keep that momentum going because we always felt JP was something special. And we always tried to build all the future because we felt like JP could have gone on for another 50 years. But we had no idea how much the impact of losing Frank was going to be. So, it was like, oh, fuck. All right, we got to put on the biggest match that we can put on. Let's put this on in a cage. Let's have some fun. We had Joker involved. We had Kyle the Beast involved. All these elements that we put together, not just from the Hit Squad and Homicide and Loki, but you had the Beast Squad. You had Joker and Homicide, that they were, the cartel, the Libre cartel, and Key and Joker had their little history together too. And just all this stuff came together, and as emotional as it is, the best part of that match, and I don't know if anybody even noticed, but there's a part where Key and I are outside of the cage, and Key's charging to do the John Woo kick to me in front of the cage. I drop and I give him the Eddie Guerrero overhead, and he goes to climb onto the cage. The problem was when I did that, Key's pants split. So when they split, I heard I was like, oh no. So I turned to Key, and he's smiling. And not that Key, for those that know Key outside the ring, he's a big jokester, but inside, anywhere around, all serious all the time, and that's what it is. He's got the rep that he has because of that. But when you see him laugh in the ring, it's almost like you forget you're in the middle of a match because he laughs. I'm like, and like, there's one pic I gotta find it. You can see the both of us laughing, and that's just like that's our relationship. It just for that one moment, that was like I felt like kind of like that was Fat Frank playing the rib on us, like you know what I mean? And on Key of all people, because he's always prim and proper, and his his look is top notch and whatever. And like, your pants ripped, stupid. You know what I'm saying? So like, it was kind of like that shout out, and it just. I know we did like another year or so, and like I said, I tried hard to. We did things with UWA Elite where we filmed worldwide before a UWA show because I felt like that place had the same vibe as early JAP. You know what I mean? So I felt like wait, we could run there and everybody there's a connection. You know what I mean? And it was a great show. I remember every match for worldwide was awesome. I'm pretty sure every match for UWA Elite was pretty dope too. You know what I mean? Like we fed off of each other, and it was all because of that JP connection. And so we're going back to the name of the podcast for us. I'm pretty sure it's easy to see that Glory Dayz for us was JP. If it wasn't for JP, there are no other days because we were able to establish something, not just in pro wrestling, but for ourselves. It's Glory Dayz. When you think of Glory Dayz, you think of the greatest and the greatest stuff that you could experience. And I know for me, I got to experience my greatest stuff with these guys because of JP. And, I'm sure they all have their own tale, but, like it's very similar. And again, going back to how we started to where we ended up. And it's something that it's a bond that no matter what, one's in Texas, one's in Pennsylvania, one's in Jersey, but we're in a room, and it's as if we're in the same room. We're in Charity Hall right now, just shooting the breeze. You know what I mean?
Smell
it. Well, there's that familiar smell of the laundromat next door, the dry cleaners, the bar,
and the fucking dirty water.
Yeah,
what is it, Newark Bay or whatever.
Yep. So but we all share that, and nobody can ever take that away from us. To me, with that night, like I said, it was something special for all of us in our own way. And, I'm glad we got to share that experience because no one's ever going to say they had that experience with anybody else. Only us. You know what I mean? The people on that show. And there's other things that we can say that we shared, and that's the fucking glory of professional wrestling. Like Eric said before, it's a brotherhood. Like Deranged said before, about teaching and showing people and learning and seeing yourself. You gain self-worth because you see how you connect with other people. Who are we? We're just guys. We're not like reality. We're not superheroes. We're not anything special. We're just a bunch of kids, and we got all these people telling us how we influenced them and how we affected them. Where else can that happen? You know what I mean? You have to make millions of dollars in the NFL for some kid to say, yeah, I had your sneakers or your poster on my wall. Or you got to be, 6'9", 7 foot to be in the NBA for some kid to say, yeah, I watched you slam dunk. But for us, we're all short pro wrestlers who enjoyed what we do. We're great at what we do. But no matter what, we have fun and respect everybody that we work with for the most part. Because, there are some jerks out there. But, I know for me, like I said, it's perfectly titled this podcast, Glory Dayz, because I shared some of my Glory Days with both these guys. So I thank you guys for helping me look good and giving me the opportunity to witness you guys, and your career and be a part of it because, you could have said, no, fuck you, Steve. You know what I mean? But we all were able to share something, and because you guys were, open to whatever it was that we were doing at the time. And thank you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm grateful for you guys as well because you guys don't know, but I mean, everybody, you guys and everyone else showed me a respect and a brotherhood that I didn't know from my own brother. Not to throw my own brother under the bus, but it's a fact, like I didn't have the relationship that I had with you guys with my own blood. So that whole time meant a lot more to me than people even realize. And Ray, I want to thank you for even like creating this platform, this podcast, shedding light on this time and on a promotion like Jersey All Pro, because a lot of people are giving all the glory and the credit to Ring of Honor. And in reality, I honestly feel like there wouldn't have been a Ring of Honor if there wasn't a Jersey All Pro, you know, because I feel like a lot of things that happened in Ring of Honor were inspired by what Rob Feinstein and Doug Gentry and Gabe saw happening at Jersey All Pro and at the Elks Lodge in Queens in New York with USA Pro and ICW, you know. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk more about this time, to talk more about Fat Frank and Big Him Up, you know.
No, definitely. And again, I thank you guys. Before I get into my thank yous and everything, Eric, any departing words before we start wrapping it up as well?
Well, I mean, like I do my best to let Steve know how much he means to me whenever we see one another. I see him relatively often enough that it's not too reminiscent. Like we actually get to talk about current shit and real life stuff. Like we were both going through some pretty rough things not too long ago, and we had some like deep conversations about it. And that's how I know that it's more than just what pro wrestling is, because we could have those types of interactions and those types of things. I remember at one point you were getting ready to walk away, and I was one of the people who threw a hook and convinced you to stay, because I told you, I promise you wrestling can be fun. I promise you wrestling can be fun. And like we'll always have that connection. And Johnny, it's very similar with you, man. You taught me a lot of lessons. One of them I told you today. Others I won't get into, but you'll go away for quite some time and then you'll come back. And whenever you do, and whenever we chill, and whenever we wrestle, whenever we talk, it's like no time has passed. Like it hurts me that you're not around more often, because I think that you do have a lot more to give this industry and to give these kids. But even though you're out there sporadically, I think every time that you are out there, people should watch you and learn from you, because so many people did, and so many people still can.
Thank you.
Thank both you guys. I appreciate
it. Deranged, I believe, is a fucking vampire, because he still looks like he's fucking barely over 21. Eric aged a little bit. Eric still looks like he's in his fucking late 20s. You know what I'm saying?
I swear, when the stream first came on, I thought Eric was Dixie, bro.
Yeah, for real.
You look the way Dixie looks right now.
I didn't even have the ability to grow facial hair when I started trading. Like, I don't even think I got like my first little like keefa until I was like 21.
Yeah, we used to call you Roach because you looked like the lead singer from Papa Roach.
Yeah, from Kobe Dick from Papa Roach, and then Magic made the joke because our first class for the tryout day was 40 people. And then by the time the class was over, we had our second class come in with like Mike Quest and Eddie Thomas and those guys. It was just me, Tony, and Suba left out of 40. And Magic was just like, "Oh, your nickname's Roach, but you're also like a roach because we can't get rid of you."
Spot on impression.
Real quick, I found pictures from when we did that skate and surf show, where me and Dana put on Corvis's gear, the steampunk gear, and while he was wrestling. I mean, I have a whole album of me wearing like Jushin Liger, Teddy Hart, AJ, Mom.
No, you had the top hat on, you had the goggles and the vest, the whole deal.
The whole thing, yeah. Like that's my gimmick. Is when I retire. Again, the moonsault, me landing the moonsault, and me putting out all the pictures of gear. The people's gear that I have, like Zack Sabre Jr., one of the best wrestlers in the world. I'm cool with it, whatever, right? He wrestled on the WWE tournament that they had, and he had a brand new jacket that he wore just for that. But he showed up at Beyond Wrestling with that jacket before he was on WWE TV. So, of course, he left it, and there's a picture of Steve with the collar popped, wearing Zack Sabre Jr.'s jacket. And I'm pretty sure he was like, "Mate, it's a little loose now," because he had some small ass arms, you know what I mean? So I'm sure it got stretched out just a little.
I don't even know how you accomplished that.
Bro, you were there. You witnessed a lot of the costume change. The best was Trisha Liger, though. Because it was like me, Mia Yim, Moff, and Key. And we were in the, the superstar locker room in Rahway. Where, there's like a big glass. I guess it was for ballet class at the rec center. And that's where all the superstars would get changed, TV guys. So Liger's in there, and he's having his match. And it's the four of us. We're back there, and we right away put on the robe. First, it was me and Yim. She's posing. Then Moff, and then me. And they're like, "Oh shit, he's coming!" And it was like, and it was still floating in the air when he walked in the room. But I didn't have it on, so I don't know who touched it. But that's, like I said, that's when I'm gone. I'll definitely share all of those different memories, because that's something that I'm gonna, that I cherish, as part of my wrestling experience. Was able to be the super fat ninja and try all that stuff before anybody knew that it was missing.
Oh man, we're gonna make sure the podcast is still around so we could just do a slideshow.
Yes,
of just all those pictures.
Not to mention titles. I mean, I got pictures with the IWGP, with the PWG, like every major title I've been around. There's a little.
Oh, that's great. But again, let's start wrapping this up. I want to give my thanks to you guys because, again, one of the main reasons I wanted to start this podcast, I've had the convo with Theo Mack for a while now about wanting to pay the respects for all this. The network I do here, Respect the Craft. I've been paying the craft. I've been paying respects to wrestling in general. But for me, JAP always had that soft spot. JAP was something I got to grow up on, gotten to see all you guys do, the amazing stuff you guys did. It definitely shaped how I thought about wrestling and how I've gone into wrestling, the way I've wanted to train, the way I've wanted to, where to go and all that. It's always been about what you guys did. And it's been an honor to be able to get to share locker rooms with you guys and just pick your brains for a little bit. So doing this just meant even more, and it was amazing to get to talk to you guys for this little bit. So thank you guys so much for joining us here.
Invite.
Thank you, Raymond, for hooking this up, and thank you guys. I didn't even know we were going to do this together until Tuesday. So I was like,
No.
I'm so down. Once he sent me the graphic, I was like, hell yeah, it's going to be dope.
No, yeah, that was my little surprise for Theo Mack because I try to, every time I have him on a podcast, I'm like, I got to pop him with something.
Yep.
So I told him the idea. I was like, let's do this. I'll find the guest. Don't worry. I'll do my research. So when I was like, okay, for the first episode, it has to be big. And I'm like, I know you three have so much history between matches and all the other stuff. I'm like, okay, let me start hitting people up. So I hit up Eric, I hit up Deranged, and I was like, if this works, it's perfect. Once everyone was confirmed, I made the graphic like that. Here we are.
And here we are 3 hours later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
I'm sure we could talk for a few more hours.
That's
Especially
what I'm saying, man. You could do
Whoever
this.
sat through this, I got major respect for them.
I know we have people still watching for those 3
Really?
hours. That's
Yep.
great.
I can't see who's in here, so
No, it doesn't tell me either. So whoever's watching, thank you.
I just saw some people comment, and I didn't want to snub them.
No,
so
yeah.
I'm thankful for
thank you.
them.
Maybe
Thank you so
one day,
much.
for those of you who are still with us, maybe
You could
one
do
day
the
we'll talk about the Philly road trips.
Oh God, I can't believe we skipped that. Shit.
Yeah, well,
Hey,
no,
there's always time for
We
a
might
part
get
two.
canceled
protection
for those
of-
things.
it's for the protection of the people that aren't here.
Yeah.
Hey, it's okay.
I mean, is Fat Frank waking up Suba by leaving a cup of shit in the room too extreme, or
Slightly.
No.
How
Okay.
So just ribs.
about Christopher Daniels in Boston
oh no?
knocking on our door? All right, seriously, guys, which one of you assholes left a shit cup in the hallway? That ain't funny. I don't know, bro. That wasn't me. I don't see the cups. Too big.
Oh my God, we're gonna leave that for a part two because we're definitely gonna have to do that.
Yeah, we gotta have Dixie in on that conversation. Shit.
Definitely. But thank you guys so much. Before we go again, anything you guys got currently going on? What's happening for you three?
I'm washed up, so
Hey, don't say that. I'm so glad when I see you on the GCW flyers again. I grew up watching you, so it's always great to see what you're doing. So
Yeah, I
Nate,
try to
continue.
pop up every now and then. Other than that, I'm just chilling.
Just make your way back to the East Coast before it's all said and done. All right, so
I'm trying. I mean, what's going on out there?
there's a few things. Come hang out with Uncle Steve. You know, I'll show you the ropes.
All right, there's not a like one night only Jersey All Pro Originals show happening or anything. Did
I
I
might be
just
giving away too much, but
did I just plant a seed?
It's been
Conveniently?
brought up a couple of times. It's been brought up a couple of times. Trust me.
Oh,
All that information will eventually come out here as well. So
Plug your Twitters because Twitter is the happening thing for the kiddos.
awesome. Let's get that there as well. So go follow Deranged because that's the only thing he still has.
yeah.
That's why I was like, where am I gonna find him? Because I know he killed
awesome.
everything else. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so
It's
there you
true.
go. Follow him as well on there. But
No
Eric,
more.
I know you got something big coming up this Saturday, so let's talk a little bit about that. Before we go.
This Saturday I got the ECWA 26th annual Super 8 tournament. If you're a tri-state area wrestler, you've wanted to be a part of the Super 8. So it might not be as big and as highlighted as it was, but to still be a part of that is something I've wanted to do for a really long time. And the lineup's ridiculous. Like I have a chance to possibly wrestle Ricky Morton.
Put that flyer up again. Can you put that flyer? Oh, that's cool.
Darius Carter's on it, Erica Lee, Travis Huckabee, Eel O'Neill, Encore Moore, Ryan Clancy. Boom, off the top of my head.
Oh, look at
all
you.
eight of them.
Is Erica Lee the girl that does
Real.
this?
Yep.
Is she that girl? Oh, she's hilarious.
No, that's Little Mean Kathleen.
No.
Are you sure?
The one that goes honk honk or whatever.
No, that's Erica.
Yeah.
Yeah, she cracks me up.
He calls it the Pooper 8.
That's why she cracks me up.
And I also
blow smoke up your ass, but I did pop when I saw that graphic this week. I believe you posted it, and I was like, "Oh, that's fucking dope." You know what
But
I
yeah,
mean?
congrats on that.
Yeah,
Congrats
man,
on that.
that's
I was
awesome.
never on that either. You know?
I appreciate that. I think it would be really cool to be able to square off with Darius in there just because of the history that we've had. And then I also have UWA Elite earlier in the day, which means there's a possibility that I wrestle 4 times on Saturday.
Sucks for you,
That
my
sounds
friend.
like fun.
Hey, as long as one of those is with getting Ricky Morton in there, that'll be cool. Like, just don't take the destroyer.
Ricky Morton's 62 years old. I don't know if he would be excited about going 3 rounds either.
Anything's possible. He took a Canadian destroyer, so.
And gave him.
Yeah, he's been given those too. I still can't believe that.
Yep.
But there you go. Again, go check out Eric. Go follow him as well. Instagram right there, Eric Corvis. Go follow him on Twitter at Eric Corvis. And go follow Theo Mack as well. Only on Twitter right there as well. Steve
sir.
Mack, VHS. So go follow everybody. Go. Again, continue to support. We'll be doing that here. We were living the glory days here. Thank you guys as again for coming on. This has been great. Thank you guys.
You ever want to do this again? I'm all for it. We could do this same lineup like 3 times in a row. We'd still have
It'll still be hours.
Yeah, there's still a lot left to talk about. Yeah.
Definitely. Next, we'll try to do another one, a part 2 to this, add some more elements and see the craziness we can get involved in. But thank you guys for those that are still watching. Thank you so much for those that are watching the replay. Subscribe because there's going to be more coming soon and a lot more craziness to talk about. So as always,
Possibly a
guys,
format next time.
hey, well, we can hit 10 people in here. So
This was
never know.
free range. This one, all free range. We controlled our narrative.
On that note,
Yeah, let's get out of here. before we-
guys.
Call it on the floor.
We'll see you guys on the next one.
All right.